They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Texas Rangers win the World Series. Perloff not impressed. Hey, welcome to the show. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff.
Wait.
It is Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio. I like it when a team finally breaks through. This is the first time the Texas Rangers have won a World Series in the history of their organization. I think that's cool. You just want dynasties and only the biggest franchises and the biggest spenders to win.
Okay.
The Rangers are big spenders.
That is an unfair allegation.
Okay. Did I misrepresent you?
So I think, famously baseball ratings go to a new low every year. I think that has to do with cord cutting and lots of reasons. This one was the lowest rated series of all time. And I don't think it's even close. Problem was you don't have any teams with any that are latching on nationwide. The Rangers come out of nowhere. And the Diamondbacks really come out of nowhere. Feels like every postseason you try to predict what's going to happen, and you are just grabbing at straws. And I do think that's kind of cool in a way. Anybody can win, and there's a lot of great stories with the Texas Rangers, and kudos to them. Incredible run. But I do think as a fan, you need some sort of expectation going into a postseason. Like, this is going to happen, and this is what I'm looking for. There just feels like so much randomness in baseball right now.
Okay, well, you did have the Astros, who have been a mainstay. They've been in the ALCS, 6 straight seasons? So you do have, and they've won twice. So you do have teams who are there all the time. The Atlanta Braves are a team that's there all the time. Your Phillies have now been a team that's gotten there in the last 2 years. So you have teams in the mix that you're expecting to be in the mix, but I think it's cool. And I can't say the Rangers are totally out of nowhere. They have a top 10 payroll in baseball. They've signed major stars this offseason in terms of Seager and Simeon, and they tried for DeGrom. They got him. He never pitched, obviously. They got Scherzer back late in the season. He ends up pitching. Nate Eovaldi. They have guys who are well-known commodities in the league, and I think it's cool that they broke through. And I just can look at it for what this season was, which is a franchise that, at one point had Nolan Ryan, at one point went to 2 straight World Series, had one of the most painful losses maybe in the entire history of the World Series in 2011, losing to the St. Louis Cardinals. Now they finally break through. I think it's awesome.
Okay, are you going to watch an out-of-market Rangers game next year?
Maybe now I will.
Well, but you understand what I'm saying. And it's nothing against Rangers. There is this feeling in baseball, anything can happen in the postseason. And that could be a great thing. I don't necessarily think it is a great thing. I think fans are having trouble getting the narratives down because you say all those things. They signed all those people. What did they have to do with anything? It was
Nate Eovaldi won 5 games in the postseason. Yeah, Seager is incredible.
Right, but you mentioned DeGrom and Scherzer are the 2 biggest names and really had nothing to do with it.
Well, Scherzer ended up with a couple big starts. Obviously got hurt in his last start, but pitched 3 innings for them. Yeah, I can just sort of take it for what it is, and it gives hope, I think, to franchises. Yes, it's awesome to root for the Dodgers and root for the Yankees, and that's really fun and great, and I'm sure it's really fun to be a fan of those teams. But when you get rewarded as a fan for hanging on, staying with it, going through all the ups and downs, isn't that kind of one of the things we have left in this world? Thinking that, honestly, everyone has a shot.
Okay, then why do people seem to be not that interested in this style of baseball?
Well,
big picture.
I think you're right. People do. I don't know if it's people like dynasties. I think people like rivalries. And right now,
they like history.
The Rangers and the Diamondbacks don't have a lot of shared history, okay? So, yes, I get that. If you want to go to a different sport, the Raptors and the Warriors didn't have, a lot of shared history. But you have these sort of one-off champions.
But you had a dynasty in that one. So
that's true, the Warriors.
I'm so negative here. Obviously, this sounds terrible. But I just think, and I'm looking, there's a stat on TV, the fact that they had a losing record on the road in the playoffs, then they go 11-0 in the playoffs. That's interesting. Amazing, but this is happening year in and year. Basically, you're watching a sport that nothing in the regular season means anything. It doesn't mean the slightest thing. And you get in the postseason, and it's anyone's guess. Any kind of analysis, I think you could pick apart any kind of analysis on what happened here in this playoffs because there's no rhyme or reason. Just the right team gets hot at the right moment, which is exciting in a way, but it's also a little difficult as a fan, I think, to consume. I was watching last night, and I had no idea what was going to happen. It was basically the Diamondbacks guy, Zach Gallen, Philly guy, South Jersey, pitching a no-hitter.
I'm like, no-hitter. Imagine going from
this is a narrative of the game. And then I'm watching it, and the Diamondbacks aren't getting home. They're leaving guys. I'm like, oh, my gosh, are the Rangers going to do it tonight despite this brilliant performance? It was a very strange series.
The idea of going from a no-hitter to losing the World Series has got to be one of the biggest mind bleeps ever. You are just cruising. And that was honestly one of the big things for Torey Lovullo, who is the manager of the Diamondbacks, whose name I can never pronounce, and Bogish makes fun of me constantly, is that what do you do when a guy's got a no-hitter going in the World Series? You obviously have to leave him in, which they did, but every metric and analytic will tell you don't see the order the third time through.
Yeah.
And he did, and they started stringing together some hits.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It was definitely stringing together very kind of weak hits. You knew when the Diamondbacks, you can't leave that many runners on base and still win the game. I'm not sure what inning was it. You could feel it turning.
7th inning.
When they went 1-0, 1-0 was enough. Congratulations again to the Rangers. Great story. Bruce Bochy. There's a lot of movie-worthy story. Bruce Bochy's career is incredible. Adolis Garcia's story is incredible, even though he wasn't there last night. It is a great story, but I just as a very general baseball fan, I had trouble latching onto this World Series. I'm going to admit it.
I think that maybe this is something it's a little selfish, right? It's a little close to my heart about teams winning for the first time.
How so?
Well, I root for a team that has never won a Super Bowl. And I'm hoping at some point they're going to break through. And this happened with the Chicago Cubs, and it happened with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And when it happened to your Phillies won the Super Bowl, your Eagles won the Super Bowl. What am I talking about? And when this happens and these teams finally win, it's like, all right, this is a reason to stick with it despite all of the heartache. I mean, listen, you might say like, oh, the Texas Rangers or the fans, they're more interested in football or a Friday night high school football game than they are in their baseball team. But like, that was painful a decade ago. Yeah. And to come back now and see it through, I think it's just fantastic for them. Gives me hope.
So you're saying the Rangers beating the Diamondbacks gives you even 1% chance of the Bills winning the Super Bowl even more? I would say
exactly.
I'd say your math is 100% off. I think it has 0%. I think a butterfly flaps his wings in Bolivia has more of an impact on the Bills winning a Super Bowl than the Rangers winning a Super Bowl.
I'm just saying it's like, it gives you a little inspiration.
Oh, my gosh.
This is, they have girl math.
That's what you're
and
looking
boy
for?
math. Now we have sports fan math. This is my sports fan math that if another team, we cross another team off the list who breaks through, that just means my team moves up one spot in the pecking order, one spot closer.
Do you think they're celebrating in bars in Western New York now? Like the Rangers did it. Now my Bills can do it? This is my own psychological mind game. Oh, man, I feel bad. You are a desperate Bills fan. You're reaching for straws here.
And you know what? The Rangers were a desperate fan base until last night. They get to celebrate. And yes, Bruce Bochy was a phenomenal hire, obviously. He comes out of retirement. First season out of retirement. What does he do? Rips off another World Series. So that makes 4 for him, obviously. He was with those really, really exciting Giants teams who kept winning every other year.
Oh, they were so not exciting, by the way. That was one of the most boring World Series champion of all time because they beat my Phillies every year with a bunch of no names. Whatever. I'm very mad at baseball. You obviously know what's going on here. This is my fandom coming out.
Yeah.
The second the Phillies lost to the cheating Diamondbacks, I don't even know what they cheated with.
No,
but
they didn't cheat.
The second they lost to those dirty snakes, the World Series, I'm still mad the Phillies aren't there. Now, Phillies Rangers, that would have been interesting. And I say that as a Phillies fan.
Yeah, why? What's the shared history between Philadelphia and Texas?
At least you got Bryce Harper. I mean, come on. The Diamondbacks, the Magic Carpet ride ended a little too early. At least give us a few more games here.
I don't know. What do you guys? Do you guys need? Do you need rivalries and dynasties, or do you like the one-off winners? Now, I'm not saying that the Rangers will be one-off, but sort of.
Kind of random.
Kind of random, I guess. I mean, listen, they did spend a lot of money this offseason, and the Rangers do spend a lot of money through their history. But, I kind of like the fact when a team breaks through.
It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because baseball expanded the playoffs so we can get more teams involved, more markets involved. And, look, I think that for a lot of places, it actually makes the regular season more exciting. Does it make it easier to follow on a national level? Maybe not, but I think inside these markets, these people were invested in their team's runs. The problem comes when you get to the postseason and you have teams that a lot of people on the national scale aren't following, like the Arizona Diamondbacks, then it becomes, okay, well, are those other markets going to then wrap their arms around this bandwagon for the World Series? And that, I think, is the damned if you do, damned if you don't. The problem before was you only had you had 2 teams in the playoffs for, I don't know, 60, 70 years, and then you expanded to just 4 in each conference. That's excluding a lot of different people, a lot of different markets. So it's like you can't really win either way.
And they wanted more buyers at the trade deadline, I think. They didn't want teams totally, going in the tank at the trade deadline, which some teams still do, because they wanted more teams in it for longer.
I think there's a disconnect. You can win 106 games, and it doesn't seem to mean as much anymore. There are some. The Red Sox the other year won 108 games and won the whole thing. I just think that's a very confusing experience for a fan. I don't know if it's all
Seattle Mariner fans.
It's a Billy Beane thing. He always said, "I can build you a playoff team in Oakland, Moneyball style." But once you get into the playoffs, it's a crapshoot. So it's not new that it's been like this.
Yeah,
it just I'm such a Debbie Downer right now to say this, because the Rangers, that was a great team, great celebration. I'm happy for the 11 fans in Texas.
Oh, come on.
Did you see that stadium for games 1 and 2?
The watch party, I couldn't believe it.
Standing room only.
I could not believe that they actually had a watch party going Milwaukee Bucks style.
Yeah, no. It's the markets. The markets, once they're invested, once they're in it, those places, they wrap their arms around these teams.
But the other part, too, which is I think there's been a backlash to like buying teams and super teams. I mean, this goes back to the Yankees. Like, everyone hated those Yankees teams. I think people criticized the Dodgers for just being in the pocketbook. And this year, it was all the big spending teams, except for your Phillies, were the number 1 spending team. But like the Mets fell on their face. The Padres fell on their faces. The Dodgers get swept in the playoffs. Like the big spending teams, it was almost like a point and laugh, like a ha-ha, look, you spent all this money and you aren't going to be in the World Series. But the Rangers did spend a lot of money. They did go after massive free agents, and now they're sitting here as champions. I wonder if this signals to those owners who really want to spend, hey, I can still buy this thing. I don't have to do the Moneyball situation. I can still buy this, and if I just throw a lot of money at guys, I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I would tell any owner who thinks that they learned anything from this postseason to just forget it. There's no rhyme or reason. I don't think there's lessons that you can glean from the way they built this team, is there? I mean,
they went out and spent.
They went out and spent.
Seager, Semien. I mean, again, I know DeGrom didn't pitch, but bringing back Scherzer, they did spend a lot of money.
Signed Eovaldi, who, of course, was the winning pitcher.
And Jordan Montgomery got hot. You basically hope to get lucky with a pitcher or two. That to me, that's a lesson. It's nothing about spending, because a lot of teams bought pitchers and it didn't work, right? And then you have the Diamondbacks on the other hand. What was their strategy?
It's been grow. They've got a good. I don't know what their strategy was. I think their strategy was
they fixed the bullpen at the trade deadline.
They're a really young team. They've really developed through the minor league system. They've had a lot of players who, in the major league systems, have kind of taken years to kind of come into their own, and now they're here and they played great during this postseason. This was really kind of, in some ways, a clash of two styles in terms of how to build a team. I think the Rangers were in a position where they had a lot of guys who they made trades for, guys they developed, but they needed to expedite the growth because they were not going to get on a World Series level with the team they had. So they signed Semien, they signed Seager in hopes of saying, okay, maybe we can speed this thing up, and now here they are, World Series champions.
Do you really believe that has any indication for what's going to happen in next season?
I think it does. I think you're wrong. I think if you think that you're going to be able to just outpitch people in the playoffs and win 3 series in a row, you're crazy. Like, you have to get power. I know, but like the game, everybody's all about launch angles. Everybody's all about, making sure you hit the ball out of the ballpark. And I know last night the Rangers struggled for most of this game, but they bludgeoned Arizona for most of this series. They bludgeoned Houston for most of this series. The best teams in baseball, the teams that are winning championships, are the teams that can hit the long ball. Which
is so funny, though, because that was always the Yankees' formula. It hasn't worked for them so far, was to bludgeon and to try to hit home runs. Philadelphia, same thing. Yeah. Try to bludgeon, hit home runs, and they're not there. I still think it does come down to pitching. It always it just always will. And I understand, yes, you want power, you're going to need power, but I think that's the part of this that's a little more the one-off.
I find it confusing, too, because the Braves were an all-time power team, and it didn't work in this playoff. So I'm not sure.
But they ran into power, though. They ran into
But not like their power. I mean, their power was all-time.
Harper and Schwarber were hitting home runs every game.
I just think that there's, again, I think this idea of a formula to win in baseball
doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, EJ. I understand what you're saying. Of course you want power, but Maggie's right, too. You want pitching, and the Diamondbacks were about fixing their bullpen in the trade deadline. I think there's no one way to do it.
In the chat, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio, twitch.tv/CBS Sports Radio, where Paul Cormican says, greetings from Northern Ireland. Well done, Texas Rangers. In Northern Ireland, they're celebrating the Rangers more than Perloff. What's that? He watched. Middle of the night. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Do you like when a team finally breaks through, or do you like two dynasties, titans, heavyweights, battling, rivalry, that kind of thing? What makes a better viewing experience?
It might be the story.
Yeah.
In all of it.
Good point.
It could be a dynasty that has a good story. It could be because some dynasties, as Andrew said, I would consider the Giants of the late 2010s, the early 2010s, somewhat of a dynasty.
Yeah, they didn't win back-to-back, but 3 in 5 years.
Right. But it was somewhat boring to some. But I mean, there's like the Red Sox were a story, and they rolled off that 2004 and 2007. It depends upon what the story is coming into the World Series, I think.
Yeah. Because people did get behind. I mean, that Cubs and Indians.
Well, that was history.
World Series was history.
Yeah.
And that was you didn't have to be anywhere near Cleveland or Chicago to get into that series.
Well, everyone knew the Cubs had been over 100 years, and the Indians obviously had a lot at stake too. So that I think those are one-offs too. That kind of history is not going to happen every year. I'm just curious how we're going to look back at this World Series 10 years from now. I wonder if there's going to be a pattern and the Rangers are going to go on a run, or it's going to be like, wow, do you remember when the Rangers and the Diamondbacks played in the World Series?
Remember that World
Series?
Series?
I mean, maybe both teams could be back next year. They're obviously outstanding, but it does feel, I'm just saying baseball, it feels like, when there's those balls in the lottery that are bouncing around, and to me, the playoffs feel exactly like that, which is a little bit frustrating, and it's kind of cool in a way, too.
Yeah, I kind of like that as opposed to the years that we had, we knew the Cavs and the Warriors were going to play in the finals from the moment that the season tipped off, and it was no mystery whatsoever.
The season was boring, but then everybody had to watch that finals. That's true. I guess I'm a dynasty guy. I think I'm learning in this conversation. I need dynasties.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. So again, congrats to the Texas Rangers. We actually got a fun package in the mail relating to the Texas Rangers. So we'll tell you about that in just a moment. One of our fans of the show sending us some merch, so appreciate that. Coming up, late night phone call with the Big Ten college football coaches.
Okay, when you say late night phone call, you immediately got my interest. Then you immediately got me going in a different direction. Okay.
No, this was not the sexy variety. This was the
not a Mel Tucker situation.
No, thankfully.
This is not a booty call. This is an actual football call.
This was not you up. This was you okay? And you ticked off.
Because I would not want to randomly call PJ Fleck in the middle of the night. I don't know that intensity at 2 a.m.
No, you never know what you're going to get there. What was said on this Big Ten football coaches call that has to do with the Michigan scandal? We get to that and your phone calls at 855-212-4CBS. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Stream the NFL on Westwood One for free. Sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. I have a theory, Maggie, that right now in Ann Arbor, Jim Harbaugh's sitting there and it's completely still and silent, and you can't hear a thing because he is sitting smack dab in the middle of a hurricane. And you know how scandals are. And when the winds start blowing in a scandal, we are in the heat of the Michigan sign stealing scandal. And this one just gets bigger and bigger every day.
Yeah, and the fact that it has given us new twists and turns every single day, we thought we should start a daily segment where we check in on what's going on at Michigan.
I got a one-track mind. I'm not going to be speculating. Can let others speculate that.
It's time for Maise and Clue.
The latest installment in the James Bond series is called Maise and Clue.
Think people are going to understand this?
No, we do.
Eventually they'll get it if we keep hammering this home.
Yes, Maise and Blue. We're looking for clues. Yes, okay.
You could easily call it Maise and No Clue.
We're still tweaking this thing because this scandal's not going anywhere. The latest comes from last night, so this is what we have to update you on. There was a call between the Big Ten coaches last night, the football coaches.
Okay.
Not shockingly, they were pissed off. I mean, they were ticked. So apparently 90 minutes was the call. 30 minutes Jim Harbaugh was on the call, and they were talking about like league news, taking care of new business, if you will. And then they asked Jim Harbaugh to hang up. And the next 60 minutes was the rest of the coaches just complaining to the Big Ten commissioner, Tony Petitti, about how Michigan needs to be punished right now. According to ESPN, and Pete Thamel spoke to 5 different coaches who were in the room. They want the Big Ten to act right now. The quote was, "What are we waiting on? We know what happened." Which I don't know if I would totally understand that. They laid out the competitive advantage that Harbaugh was getting from this sign-stealing scandal, all these allegations. They called his record tainted, fraudulent. They said this is unprecedented. And again, much of the call sort of laying out how this impacted teams. Like they're saying, if you know the difference, whether it's run or pass, that is everything in college football. And so the coaches are salty.
I'd be a little embarrassed, too, if I was these coaches, that I wasn't changing up my signals enough. Because regardless of whether he was doing it legally or illegally, all teams, I'm finding out, try and decipher the other team's signs. Because we watch on TV, we see people hold up the boards with the signs, we see the coach. So I would think that some of this is going on. If you're a Big Ten coach, you look a little weak here that you never changed your signs, especially everyone apparently knew that Michigan was doing this. So I don't totally understand that aspect of it. Couldn't they have said, well, now they're saying that Michigan was stealing signs? They didn't know?
Okay, I think that's basically kind of like blaming the victim, though, isn't it? It's like
victim blaming in college football?
Yeah, you're blaming the victim here, where you're telling the coaches, you should have known, you should have done better. It's like, or Michigan shouldn't have broken the rules, which they clearly did.
Wait, we're talking about college football. I mean, you're not going to even have a sport if you're not going to have someone breaking the rules.
Yeah, I know. It's funny when I saw that he broke the sportsmanship clause. I was like, that's hilarious. But I think at some point you have to recognize 2 things. One, the coaches are ticked off. Like, you might not have coaches who are coming out on the record and blasting Jim Harbaugh, but you also don't have coaches who are coming out on the record and defending him either, which I think speaks volumes. You do have a new poll that came out from The Athletic, where Bruce Feldman, who's been a longtime college football reporter, basically polled like 50 different coaches and all different levels, and 94% of the coaches believe that these were severe. Like this cheating was severe, and they also believe that Jim Harbaugh should be punished.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't really care what the anonymous coaches say. Say it on the record if you care so much. I mean, why is it that hard to say on the record?
Well, first of all, I think there is like this coaching kind of fraternity, number one. Like, it was shocking when Sean Payton called out Nathaniel Hackett, where like the coaches just generally don't do that against each other. And I think there's part of it where you may not be totally innocent.
Yeah.
But you can still think that Jim Harbaugh crossed a line.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's like, I don't want to call him out because maybe my program has a couple skeletons in the closet, but you could think they're not nearly as bad as what Harbaugh is doing.
Right. It's like baseball where the Houston Astros were banging the garbage can was so embarrassing. To be caught on Twitter banging a garbage can was so brazen and over the top, where everybody was sign stealing, I'm assuming, and other teams were caught. But if you at least do it with an Apple Watch, you're being subtle about it. I think the garbage can is what Jim Harbaugh's doing. He's just going over the top, having Connor Stallions in the other stadiums, maybe in disguise, maybe not in disguise.
The disguise is.
But I'm more confident than ever nothing is going to happen here. And you know what's going to happen?
Ever? Nothing ever?
No, nothing this year.
Okay.
So the coaches obviously, if the Big Ten is going to act like the coaches say they should, that means keep Michigan out of the Big Ten title game and maybe submarine their chances to be the Final Four. I don't think that's going to happen for a couple reasons. The Big Ten is a business. They want Michigan in that Big Ten title game in a huge way. Secondly, I think that everybody in college football moves too slowly. The NCAA, who's now involved, is completely toothless. The legal system has gutted that organization, so they're not going to do anything. The Big Ten has too much money. The NCAA can't do anything. What's going to happen? The college coaches are going to anonymously whine to Bruce Feldman, and no one's going to care. I think Michigan, if they beat Penn State, the other thing is they obviously are not sign stealing from here on out because the other team knows to change the signs, so they can prove, hey, we're really a good team, and this can not go away, but I think the storm dies down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, a lot's riding on Michigan now.
Yeah, these games are huge.
Not only do they have to win big, I think. I mean, maybe Ohio State, that's such a big rivalry game, maybe Penn State, but I think you got to win pretty big here to kind of show, hey, we actually are this really dominant team. Now, that might happen against Purdue. I don't know.
Well, Purdue, yes. I mean, I don't think that actually is good. I think they have to beat Penn State. They're only 2.5-point favorites against Penn State. In Penn State, it's hard to play there.
Yep.
If they win that game, I think they put a lot of this to the side. I know that's so silly. It really shouldn't depend on the results, but you know how it is.
Here's the other part. Like, you could listen, the Big Ten is caught in a really tough position because you are set up right now for Michigan potentially win the national title. So, yes, are you going to now start imposing sanctions on the team? Now, I think they could do something to Harbaugh. The coaches want a pound of flesh here. And I know that it's probably good for the commissioner to let everybody complain and kind of get it off their chest. And it's probably been, built up. But while they might not punish Michigan this year, you could take Jim Harbaugh off the sidelines for a couple days. Apparently, the commissioner has wide latitude under this sportsmanship clause, which again, LOL, sportsmanship, college football. But I wonder if they have to give these coaches some kind of pound of flesh, and do they take Jim Harbaugh off the sidelines for a game that's not against Northwest East South State, not against a lesser opponent? Following
the pattern of how they've penalized Jim Harbaugh this year, I think they should take him off the sideline for Purdue, put him back for the Penn State game, take him off for the Maryland game, and put him back for the Ohio State game.
You got to go with laser precision.
Even that, I don't think they can. I don't think Jim Harbaugh on the sideline necessarily determines who wins or loses, but I don't think they want to risk messing up their golden goose in Michigan here. There's a lot of money involved in this.
I know, but this is a way
to so much risk. They could just say we need time to go through all the facts. I think that they take that path, and they probably do. By the way, it's not that easy. Even we're like, wait, what just happened with Connor Stallions? Do you think they have any clue the depth of this sign stealing scandal? So I think they're going to argue we need time to suss through this, get through this season, then lay down the hammer when Jim Harbaugh is the offensive coordinator and wherever.
Yeah, when he's already gone and left. Although now there's new reporting about that in the NFL. This is now two different reporters who have it. You had Ian Rappaport, who works for the NFL, so you know where that's coming from. And then you now have Charles Robinson from Yahoo, who's also laying out there that Jim Harbaugh, if he does decide to leave Michigan this year and go to the NFL, he could still be subject to suspension when he's at the pro level.
So if the Raiders wanted Jim Harbaugh, they would live with 4 games without Jim Harbaugh anyway. So it's not the end of the story there. Yeah, I think this is the best path for everybody involved here is just to wait. Not necessarily the fair path. I understand the coaches are mad, but if you're the Big Ten, to make a radical move, and what if you're wrong, too? What if you find out that, everybody's been doing this, or Connor Stallions really, Jim Harbaugh, we still don't have the direct link with Jim Harbaugh and Connor Stallions, and maybe that doesn't matter at all, but maybe there's a much more direct link than we even know. Maybe Jim Harbaugh is actually on Expedia buying tickets for Connor Stallions. I just think you could argue you need more time.
He's like, do you want to stay at the Courtyard Marriott, or would you like to stay at the Seaside Hilton?
And Connor's definitely got Marriott points, so I think that he is definitely going to the Fairfield Inn and making sure. Yeah, Connor Stallions.
He's getting the hot breakfast.
Yeah, we've all been. Anybody who's been a traveler like Connor Stallions, you need a system here. Like, there's one thing to steal signs. There's another to get airline points.
Chilling at the Delta Club in a Central
my
Michigan
gosh. Are you kidding
shirt
me?
and a pair of sunglasses.
I actually never, ever, I've been in a Delta Club once or twice. What is going on? I assume that there's very fancy nuts in all of these lounges. I think that's a distinction between the regular airport and the Delta Club.
Like nutty people?
No, I think you have like the
Like cashews.
Those fancy almonds. What are those called? The
Jordan almonds?
Jordan almonds. There's another macadamia nuts. You might
Big
have some
nut guy.
macadamia nuts. I mean, that's what makes a airport lounge the best.
The fact that, I got to be honest, in a post-COVID world, to be sticking your hand in a communal bowl of anything, to me, that went out the window with COVID.
It could be me.
I think you get your own jar in these Delta lounges. I think you sit down and you take your shoes off. Someone rubs your feet.
Yeah.
You get a bowl of macadamia nuts that is right out of the can.
Yes, and someone's fanning you with like a big leaf.
Yes.
You know what happens at the end of the day when all the travelers from all different corners of the world have had their own individual bowls of these macadamia nuts? You know what they do at the end? They take all of the bowls and what's left over and they pour it back into the big bowl and then they just reserve it again. Guys, has anyone ever worked in the food service industry?
Oh,
Please.
that is very disappointing.
But germs don't last that long, Maggie. They'll slowly die off overnight while they're back together. So when they reserve you in the morning, the next person, they're back to being clean.
All good.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
Great.
You're
Science.
here for the science.
Yes. You're welcome.
Science.
Dr. Fauci. Jim Bogus is here. He's got headlines. Good morning, Bogus.
Good morning. So we jinxed the Phillies, but our powers weren't strong enough to keep Max Scherzer from winning a world title with the Rangers. At least he was only a spectator last night as Texas closed out the first title in franchise history in Game 5 in Arizona. They won 5-0 after being held hitless and scoreless for 6.
Gallen into his motion. Here's the pitch. Swinging a ball hit on the left side. Nobody there. It rolls out into left field. An opposite field single for Corey Seager to break up the no-hit bid by Zach Gallen.
Evan Carter then doubled, and Mitch Garver did this.
The 0-1. Garver swings, hits it up the middle. Base knocked into center. Seager scores. Carter being held at third as Thomas fires it back into the infield. RBI single for Mitch Garver, and the Rangers score first here in the 7th and lead it 1-0.
The calls from Rangers radio. Texas then tacked on 4 in the 9th, including a 2-run homer from Marcus Semien.
We pitched well enough to win 1-0, but to put up those runs in the 8th inning, it kind of calms you down a little bit out here. You know, 1-0 game on the road is tough, so we put up 4, and to be a part of that 4-run inning was huge.
He meant the 9th inning, I swear. Nathan Eovaldi, Aroldis Chapman, Josh Sborz did the pitching. Corey Seager's World Series MVP for the second time in his career. To call him complicated is an understatement. Bob Knight passing away yesterday at 83. Putting all the bad and controversial aside for a moment, Knight won a national title as a player, then 3 as Indiana's coach. 1 point, he had the most wins in men's D1 history, and he led the U.S. to the 84 Olympic gold medal. We've got Will Levis and Kenny Pickett under center on the Amazon app tonight. The Titans officially ruling out Ryan Tannehill again because of his high ankle sprain, so Levis gets his second start after tossing 4 scores on Sunday. Pickett not even on the Steeler injury report after last weekend's early exit with a rib injury. And the Falcons will start Taylor Heineke at QB Sunday against the Vikings. Head coach Arthur Smith saying this is only for this week for now. Klay Thompson, just 14 points last night, but that was plenty for the Warriors against the Kings.
Curry at midcourt. They're going to trap him. Feeds over to Draymond. Draymond looks, finds Thompson with 3, with 2, with 1. The jumper's up. Good! .2 to go! Klay Thompson with the bucket! Sacramento calls time.
Tim Roy, Warriors Radio, the game winner with 2:10 left. 102-101 the final for the Dubs over the Kings.
You, last dance vibes, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Klay Thompson hasn't a game winner inside of 30 seconds left in like at least 5 years.
Game 5 of the NBA season, and you're calling it the last dance already? Okay.
It's got that vibe.
Just feel it. Let it wash over you.
Okay, you watch. That is the biggest one-man team in the entire NBA. The second Steph Curry walks off that court, that is Scrub City, USA.
Except who hit the game winner last night? Not Steph Curry.
And how many points did he score?
14. Steph had 21. Balanced effort last night.
Scrub City USA. How many Hall of Famers are on that team right
You
now?
saw the playoffs last year. When Curry came out of the game, it was a continual disaster for the Warriors. That's what I worry about with them.
Okay. But, I mean, if Jokic is out of the game, how good are the Nuggets? If Giannis isn't out there, how good are the... Well, now they've got Lillard helps, but of course Steph Curry's the best player.
I'd say the Nuggets team around Jokic is 10 times better than the Warriors team around Steph Curry.
10
that
times?
sounds crazy to me.
Look at the team around Steph Curry that's young and unproven.
3 All-Stars.
Wait, but they got
Who?
Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green are All-Stars.
Well, Wiggins was hurt last year, but okay. But Draymond Green.
Wiggins has won a title and came up big against
You take
the Celtics.
Draymond Green away from Steph Curry, and you have PJ Tucker.
Chris Paul.
Okay, well, good thing he's on Steph Curry's team.
Chris Paul. Okay, let's talk about Chris Paul.
About talent.
Yes, talent 15 years ago. Is it 2012?
Chris Paul, what are you talking? He's averaging 8 assists this season.
Oh, that team. You don't think that team's living? Okay, we'll see the plus minus in the playoffs when Curry's on and off the court.
Well, of course, but that's because Steph Curry is an all-time player.
But I think more so than a lot of these other players. I think that they are so dependent on him they need him to take them to the next level. When he's off the court, I think it's going to be a problem in the playoffs because who scares you? Chris Paul?
Where's Denver super team, though? That's what I'm confused by. You said 10 times better than the Nuggets.
You
got Jamal Murray.
Yes.
Never been an All-Star. Aaron Gordon. Never been an All-Star. Michael Porter.
I mean, Murray's a stud. Murray's the better second player.
He's my favorite player in the NBA besides Steph Curry, so I'm not here to bash him. But, I'm saying the 10 times better than the Nuggets or better than the Warriors.
You saw that series last year.
I know, but I think, yes, those guys came up really big in that series, but wasn't it also because Jokic, and we realized, even people who are late to the Jokic thing, realize how much better and how much easier it is to play when you have a guy like Jokic on your team.
I don't know. I think the team is thin around the Warriors, and I think they're short. That's the other problem. You telling me they can compete with those big players on Denver you just mentioned?
No. Again, we're arguing now that the Nuggets supporting cast is 10 times on the Warriors.
First of all, don't even
say the Warriors are going to win a title or a series.
Go straight to the DraftKings app and put that future on the Warriors. If you guys think they're so well-rounded.
I think Jokic is the best player in the world. We had that discussion earlier this week. So I'm all in on the Nuggets. I'm just saying this is a team playing Christian Brown and Najee 20 minutes a night. You're telling me the Warriors they're 10 times better than the Warriors around Jokic?
I'm just saying, look at the Warriors. There's kind of a journeyman vibe to once you get past Steph.
They have Chris Paul.
Chris Paul.
What are you talking about?
Chris Paul is 38 years old.
No, I know, but he's a Hall of Famer.
How many teams has he played on in the last 4 years? That's journeying.
Right, but he's a Hall of Famer.
Well,
he took his team to the finals a couple years ago.
Ring chasing, I think, is different than journeying.
But
journeying kind of implies that you don't have any say in where you're going.
Right.
PJ
Tucker is a journeyman.
Well, I think at this point, Chris Paul has kind of little value. But anyway, and also there's a bunch of 19 to 20-year-olds that they're trying to break in and find that extra guy. It's a process.
Nuggets are playing Peyton Watson. I don't know. I don't understand this.
Folks, what else you got?
I got LeBron. He scored 35 points. The Lakers outlasted the Kings 130, or the Clippers rather, 130-125 in overtime, ending an 11-game losing streak in their head-to-head. The Grizzlies are 0-5 for the first time since 2002 after a 133-109 loss in Utah. The Heat 1-4, their worst 5-game start since 2006. They blew a 15-point lead, lost at home to the Nets 109-105. The Bucks just 2-2 after falling in Toronto 130-111. And Jokic and those star-studded Nuggets losing for the first time this year 110-89 in Minnesota. How about some hockey drama this morning? The Ottawa Senators fired GM Pierre Dorian yesterday after the NHL docked them a future first-round pick for some professional negligence. Back in July of 2021, Dorian traded forward Evgeny Dadonov to Vegas without informing the Golden Knights that Dadonov had a 10-team no-trade clause. So, in March of 22, when Vegas dealt him to Anaheim, the trade was eventually called off because the Ducks were on that list the Golden Knights didn't know about. And the Columbus Crew took the opener of their...
Where's the agent in all of this?
How are they figuring that out now?
Yeah.
No. This is the end of an investigation. They've known about it because the trade was called off because they knew about it.
Gotcha.
It just went this long before a conclusion.
Wow.
Wait, did they not read the whole contract or something?
I don't know the specifics of how those things work.
Yeah.
But his agent knew about it.
It's got to be explicitly written down if you have a no trade, right?
So I would think so. It's got to be paperwork. Dadonov knew about it because he's like, you can't trade me to Anaheim. I can't go here. And Vegas went, what are you talking about? So, I mean, there is a fault in Vegas for not reading, I guess, every single page, but this is falling heavily on Ottawa because they didn't say anything about it. And I guess it's their responsibility
buyer
to
beware.
inform you, or maybe they didn't file the paperwork correctly.
Well, if you didn't file the paperwork correctly, but buyer beware. I mean, you got to know what's going on. It's like Bradley Beal. That no trade clause that he had from D.C., that travels with him to Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if I'm missing the hugest smoking gun, I apologize, but this has been a thing for however, was it 18 months now?
Weird.
And it's been on Ottawa for doing something shady that Vegas didn't know what they were getting in this trade. All right, back to you guys.
Don't hear that one every day. Okay, coming up, we want to hear from you. Should Jim Harbaugh be punished, not fired, be punished this season, right now? Sit him down for a game. Sit him down for 2. Should the Big Ten take action? 855-212-4CBS. Also coming up, we hear from the new head coach in Las Vegas. Get to that. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. A lot going on today. It's been a busy time of year. Got the Rangers winning the World Series last night, and I thought this was fun. So we got a package in the mail yesterday from Daniel in Virginia.
Nice.
Sent a hat, presumably, Perloff, I think this is for you because you're really the hat wearer around here. Got a snapback for you, and
I can't put this on now, can I?
you absolutely must. I think you should wear this for the rest of the show. Just break it in.
Well, I love bandwagons, but my Phillies just lost in the last round. I can't all of a sudden jump on Texas.
I've seen you do worse.
All right,
I've
you
seen
should
you do worse.
jump on Texas.
There you go. Perloff is wearing the hat.
This feels good.
And this is Daniel in Virginia who said, "Don't believe the Houston lies. They belong in the trash if Houston still had trash cans." Signed, the homegrown Daniel in Virginia. And Daniel had called us last week to talk about how his love for the Rangers and the fact that they were homegrown. Now, we kind of went through the roster and maybe not as homegrown as you might think, but I get his point.
I loved his definition of homegrown. He's like, well, he's only been here 3 years, even though that was one of the great calls because there was a certain logic. He actually convinced me that these guys who started elsewhere were homegrown. I think
it's like, well,
I'm
I
glad
don't
for
care if
him.
he played minor league baseball somewhere else. I'm like, well, that's kind of the definition of homegrown. But I got to say, that Rangers hat looks awesome. Now I wish I'd kept it for myself. You look great.
I'm a winner. I wear Rangers hats. I've been backing this team all of the last 3 days.
Yeah, right. I think you called them your Diamondbacks yesterday. So.
I did. I think my logic was spot on. I wanted the Diamondbacks to win the World Series because that would make me feel better about them beating the Phillies. So the Phillies would lose to the eventual champion. You guys all disagreed with that.
Totally disagree.
Yeah.
You're such a loser.
But do you realize the Phillies lost to the second best team in baseball? That's not as good as losing to the best team.
No, the Diamondbacks brought you pain. They came into your house, Game 6 and Game 7, and they beat you guys. And you cannot now want to see that team prosper.
That's not how Phillies fans view it.
That doesn't make any
Phillies
sense
fans lost that series. The Diamondbacks didn't come in there and beat them. The Phillies blew it. That's how we view it.
No, the Diamondbacks came into your house. They took the NL championship. You can't then now say, well, I want to see them succeed. Like that. That's like if my ex goes with somebody else and I say, well, at least that guy, is a multimillionaire. No, I want to see my ex suffer.
No, Phillies fans are total narcissists. They don't even care about. Nobody walked out of that stadium and said, "Man, those Diamondbacks are good." It was bleep word, bleep word, bleep word to this guy, to the manager, to Topper, to bleep Castellanos, just bleep everybody. It didn't matter that the Diamondbacks were. The Phillies blew, and they did blow that series. They had 2 games at home. They should have. Anyway, don't get me. Great. Thanks, EJ. I was in a great mood wearing my Rangers hat. And now you have me reliving one of the worst sports moments of my month.
But that's the point. That's why you should dislike the Diamondbacks. You should grow a hatred for the team that knocked you out of the playoffs. To me, it's simple.
It's kind of hard to hate the Diamondbacks. You have to admit.
I am weirdly with Perloff on this one. I'd rather lose to the eventual champ.
Yeah.
It's like we never had a shot because this was destiny for this other team. That it makes it a tiny bit more palatable. Like, we weren't getting in the way. This was written in the stars.
In your terms, you lost 13 seconds to the Chiefs, who are the best team in football. Yeah. But when you lost Music City Miracle to the Titans, that didn't go anywhere.
I'm agreeing with you.
That's what I'm saying. No, I'm saying that makes sense as a Bills fan.
Thank you. Why does it always have to be about that? Okay. One young quarterback could be in trouble. Oh, man.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's been on the TB12 method since he was 6. She's on her 3rd scotch. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Well, it turns out it wasn't going to be as simple as going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. At least it doesn't look that way. Hey, welcome to the show, Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. It is Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio. A lot going on today, but this should not get lost in the shuffle, and that is the Green Bay Packers, Perloff, not exactly coming out with a full force defense of Jordan Love and his performance so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be pretty hard to do that. He's been the worst quarterback in the league in the first half of every single game. It's not working. We understand that. I just want to warn people who are talking about the Packers, the team around Jordan Love is bad. There's just no way to avoid that. They're in full rebuild. Even Aaron Rodgers would not have been able to do anything with this team. The receivers are bad. The line is a mess. The play calling is terrible. I think LaFleur has been exposed. I think the Packers are doing kind of everything wrong, and it's all coming down on Jordan Love.
Well, but here's the thing. Okay, listen, they just traded Rasul Douglas away, so maybe they're a little bit in seller mode. But at the same time, they did just sign Rashawn Gary to a huge contract. Like, they do have a lot of talent on defense. And on offense, like, aren't you just, a receiver or two away? Like, I can't.
Wait, do you only have two? You being a receiver or two away?
I'm just
That's
talking,
a far way away.
Well, that could be a far way away, but you have a good run game. You obviously need to shore up the offensive line that has gotten old and has gotten injured. And you get a good receiver, which can happen in the draft almost immediately overnight, and maybe you have something. I think that Jordan Love deserves some criticism here. This is not a rookie who's stepping into the bright lights for the first time. I'm totally understand he's got a lot of pressure on him. This is not going to be an easy spot. But at times he looks totally flustered and making mistakes that a guy who's in the 3rd year in the league should not be making.
I totally Of course he deserves criticism. I'm just saying it's not all. And he's played very poorly. Even in the week 1 where they won the game and everybody was high on him, I was like, uh-oh. I could see there was definite accuracy problems. But you watch him more. There's a former quarterback who was in the room. Remember Kirk Benkert? He was a Virginia quarterback. Every week he tweets the same thing. He was in the room with Rodgers and Jordan Love. He said nobody could win with this team. The way they're playing right now, it is just not set up for any kind of success with Jordan Love. And their run game has been awful this year. Aaron Jones is in and out of the lineup. They're a bottom 5 running team in the league. So poor Jordan Love is getting nothing but 3rd and longs. And it just seems like there's a lack of creativity on play calling. Matt LaFleur has been somewhat exposed not having Aaron Rodgers.
Definitely.
Now, it could be on the quarterback. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I think they're a real rebuilding team, and Jordan Love is going to take the slings and arrows here. I don't think it's going to work out long term, but I think that they're starting from ground zero. They just have to start over. They thought that they could sort of string together a post-Aaron Rodgers team. It's not happening. They're too young. They're too injured on the offensive line. It's time to start over.
The general manager, Brian Gutekunst, was talking to the media yesterday. He said the next 10 games are going to be crucial for Jordan Love.
Yeah.
Does it take you more than just this season to find out what you have in Jordan and if he is the guy going forward?
I hope not. I think, we got 10 games left. These are going to be very important 10 games. And, I think he's done a lot of really good things. Really like the way he's responded to the adversity, how he's led the team. Again, we got to be better as a unit. And I expect that to happen over the next 10 games.
We'll see what happens over the next 10. Listen, I think that the Packers kind of told you without telling you when they gave him basically a 1-year, $22.5 million extension, and that preceded the 5th-year option that they did pick up. So the deal was 13.5 fully guaranteed at signing and runs through next year. That is peanuts for starting quarterbacks in the NFL. He's basically getting like high-end backup money.
Well, they weren't going to give him $100 million to a guy who'd started 2 games. He never played. I kind of had to do that. Here's another issue. They've lost 4 in a row. They've moving up on the draft in a big way. At 2-5, they sit number 6 right now. Big quarterback draft. I think that plays into this too. If you were looking at the draft and say I'll throw out a name, Michael Penix,
sure,
then the Packers have to, they might have to jump on this because they don't usually find themselves in the top 5.
I think they will.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that it was never going to be this easy. I think that getting 3, you were never going to have 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks back to back to back. And I just wonder if there are some Packer fans. I know Rodgers has a torn Achilles right now, so it's impossible to play the what-if game. However, do you wish that it got so personal and it got so bad between the front office and Rodgers at the end? It was sniping in between the two. Who was calling who back on FaceTime? Like, it got so petty and in some cases so ugly. Had they just not had all this ego on both sides, could they have salvaged the end of this?
I see what you're saying. I think it was more about the roster. The fact that he left that Green Bay roster and got to the New York Jets of all teams and said, wow, I can't believe I have all these weapons on offense. The New York Jets have more weapons than the Packers. He was like, this is heaven on earth to see this offense. This is historically the worst offense in the history of the league. Was better than what he was dealing with in Green Bay.
But half of the guys he brought with him. You could have kept Allen Lazard. You could have kept Randall Cobb. That's like 2/3 of the Jets offense.
I wish we would have left him in Green Bay.
Yeah. But I'm saying when he arrived for that last season and Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs were his starting rookies and not even first-round pick rookies, that was the beginning of the end.
Well,
he
maybe if
couldn't
he
have done
bothered to
anything
show
with
up for OTAs,
No,
maybe
those-
they wouldn't have looked so bad.
No, those guys don't have it. They're good. They're second and third receivers. Obviously, you lose Devontae Adams. It's not going to be easy to replace, but you can't do it with 21-year-olds who have very little experience.
Well, and I think Rodgers a bit has to wear the Devontae Adams leaving too. Because Adams said if he hadn't been talking about retirement all the time, then Adams may not have been looking for an exit ramp as quickly as he was.
I think that
the Packers were going to pay him. It's not about that.
Bakhtiari obviously can't get on the field. Yeah. Elton Jenkins, is their other all-pro lineman, is hurt all the time. And that defense, they have high picks and they're paying some of those guys. But is there a single time they have not let that fan base down? They are really disappointing as well. I think there's a lot of problems here. I say problems. They're a rebuilding team. They're young. They have to start over. You said it well. It was unrealistic to think you'd go Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer. So I think Jordan Love is not going to work there, but I do think Jordan Love has an amazing arm and has a chance in the right system to be something.
A backup, I think.
Backup who gets a shot again. He's 23.
Yeah, no, I know he's super young.
Or maybe 24 now.
But again, hasn't played a lot. I think that, listen.
He's 25.
I wasn't expecting him to be the Hall of Famer. Again, that would have been, seems like that would have been impossible. I expected to look a little better. And again, you can blame offensive line, you can blame lack of receivers, but what's weird about it is they get in these big holes in the first half, and then they're able to dig themselves out of some of it in the second half. So clearly they're able to do some things right, and maybe that's the defense on the other side, the opponents kind of taking their foot off the gas. But at some points it can work. Why can't it work right out of the gate? That falls on the quarterback and the head coach.
No, that falls on the head coach. It's every Packers, I don't know. They're calling a very uncreative offense in the first half. They finally get to it in the second half. I'm going to put that as much on the floor as Jordan Love. Again, I know he's not reading the field great. He doesn't really look comfortable back there, but it's so hard to evaluate a player when the line's not playing great, when the play calling is uncreative, when the run game isn't helping you at all. I think they're probably going to move on from Jordan Love, but I don't think they blame this. I think internally they're looking, oh my God, what chance does this guy have? He's under so much pressure too.
There was a thought, I think, amongst many Packer fans who they might not admit it now, but you were saying it in the offseason, why not the playoffs? And
they're NFC North.
I know Rodgers didn't make the playoffs his first full year as a starter. I get that, but there were people talking playoffs in the Packer fan base, and now you're closer to getting a top 5 pick than you are making it to the playoffs.
Well, yeah. I mean, I
You
think
got to be disappointed.
of course you're disappointed, and there was realistic talk of playoffs. They easily could have won 9 games.
No,
They
but you're
started out
saying
2-1.
this is a rebuild, it's a teardown, like everyone should have known it all the time. I'm saying you're saying that now.
Do you know who the third wild card team is going to be in the NFC? It's a battle between Atlanta, Tampa Bay. There's the third wild card team is going to be debating: should I completely tank to get a quarterback, or should I go to the playoffs?
Well, that's what happens in the playoffs. Expand to 100 teams.
I think even optimistic Packer fans are like, we could sneak in at 9-8 because we're in this terrible division. Listen, there's Jaron Hall's about to start for the Vikings. Tyson Bagent is starting for the Bears. Honestly, I wouldn't even totally count the Packers out now at 2-5. This is a messy conference. So we'll see. I think they are going to have to start over. And it's not Jordan Love's fault. He's just the wrong place, wrong time.
I think he still has to wear it. They are favored, by the way. They're favored at home this weekend against the Rams. EJ, can you check the weather for what's supposed to be happening in Green Bay this weekend? Because I see that the over-under is 38.5, and even if it's some bad quarterback play, that's...
I'm seeing here game time weather, 45 degrees and cloudy.
Oh, okay.
What's the deal with Stafford? I think that's the...
that might be part of it.
Yeah.
But that's pretty low. And then I see the Browns line is 37.5. And I'm like, maybe we just have some bad weather coming through.
No. All the Browns lines are that low, right? They're always at 38 points. Who's playing quarterback? There's a bunch of games where like, wait, who's playing quarterback here?
That's true. The Browns are playing the Cardinals, who are now starting...
So wait, yeah, what is the matchup? I saw that the other day.
The Cardinal, well, it's not going to be Kyler Murray, so it's going to be
Clayton Tune against, and who are the Browns starting?
Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I believe, gets the nod.
That is the worst matchup. And
Cleveland's favored by 8 points.
Yeah, and Stafford's not practicing yet, so who knows who's their backup because they couldn't get John Wolford back.
And Stetson Bennett's been away from the team.
Yeah, this is it's week 8. It already feels like week 17 around the NFL. That's funny. So if the Packers do win this game, Brett Rippon, if the Packers do win this game, they're 3-5, and then they're right at the turning point. Do you try and lose games to get a great quarterback, or do you try and sneak in the playoffs because your division is terrible?
I don't know. 3-5 is enough to get coaches fired in this league.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
mean, yeah, but 3-5 when you're in a division with Jaron Hall and Tyson Bagent as your competition is pretty good.
I'd love to hear from the Packer fans. If you're disappointed, where's your disappointment? Is it with Jordan Love for not looking more ready than he should, considering he got to sit? He got the luxury of being able to sit and learn over the last 3 seasons, which teams and players rarely get, usually get thrown right into the fire. Are you putting this more on Matt LaFleur? Or are you just putting it on, roster construction? See, that's the frustrating part.
They got old. They got old.
But that's the frustrating part. Well, are they old or are they young?
Well, no, they got old. So then in the last 3 years, they've gotten super young. I'm saying all the great players kind of graduated. Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, David Bakhtiari. The core of that number 1 seed team is kind of gone.
It's tough, I think, when you're a Packer fan because the president, the general manager don't answer to anybody, you know?
Yeah, but
there's no owner.
Would it be tough? You've been in the playoffs how many years out of the last 20 years? That is not a tough job to be a Packers fan.
Well, this has got to feel
I don't
weird.
know about that. I mean, how many playoff disappointments has that fan base dealt with? Teams going into Lambeau Field, a place that for decades nobody could win. And now everybody wins there. 49ers win there. Giants have won there. Tampa Bay's won there. I mean, they've dealt with some misery in the postseason.
To be fair, that Tampa Bay loss, there were no fans.
There were no fans there.
And it was an unseasonably warm day.
Yeah, I know. But
still, Tom Brady threw 3 picks in the second half. You got to win that game.
I just looked at the numbers. Since 2000, they've had 15 double-digit win seasons. I don't think that's a disappointed fan base. They've gotten consistent excellence. I know it's only one Super Bowl, and I understand the disappointments, but let's not have a pity party for the Packers fans.
I think
teams have to rebuild at some point. You get old.
No, I know, but this one's got to be particularly frustrating, I would think.
I don't think so. I think they came in with an 8-win total, and they said, I think even fans knew, this Jordan Love, we've never seen him play. This is a bit speculative. I don't think that they're drowning themselves. Well, they are drinking a lot of beer, but I don't think they're drowning themselves in this beer.
You ran Rodgers basically out of town or 2 to tango or however.
That's called Mother Nature. Dude's 40.
He could have, that doesn't matter. He could have retired a Packer, and I think now you're seeing what life is like on the other side, and it's not that great. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. And the crazy thing is, is that you're more likely to now be in a revolving door of quarterbacks than just find the next guy right away. I mean, what actually happens in the NFL? These first-round picks are like 50-50 in terms of great or bust.
Or is it the Packers once again found the golden goose at quarterback and they lucked into, say a name again, J.J. McCarthy at number 5 overall in the draft, and people were like, oh my gosh, the Packers did it again. This lucky fan base gets to go from quarterback to quarterback to quarterback.
I don't know if they're getting my benefit of the doubt right now. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's hear from the Packer fans. Okay, a lot more to do in terms of the NFL. This was one rumor that is out there regarding an all-time Hall of Fame football coach. It almost makes too much sense. But will it happen? Major rumor with NFL head coach. We'll get to that rumor next. Don't move. It's Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break.
He had a line at the end of that.
All right, welcome back to the Maggie and Perloff Show. Gosh, we put out on social media at Maggie and Perl a picture of me wearing a Texas Rangers hat.
Yeah, sent to us by Daniel in Virginia.
I don't understand the problem here. Everyone's calling me a hypocrite. Everyone knows the Rangers are my AL team. When Trevor Simeon hit that big home run last night, I was totally thrilled.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Perloff you're like the Connor Stallions of the show, which is that I'm sure you've got merch of every team in the back of your car.
Whoever wins, I'll be there. You got a parade?
Well, whoever's hat and sweatshirt you need to be wearing, you'll accommodate. 855-212-4CBS. Got a couple things for you, including Jordan Love, who feels like he's basically trying out for his starting in a future with the Packers. Nothing is being promised or given to Jordan Love, and this has been a disappointing season for Green Bay. Tammy is in Appleton, Wisconsin, has got a thought on it. Good morning, Tammy. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning. I'm just calling because, I hear, all the stuff about Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, and, right now local radio is, roasting everybody on the Packers pretty much. There's nothing untouched, not Brian Gutekunst, not Matt LaFleur. Everybody is under scrutiny right now. But, this whole thing started with Rodgers a couple years ago when we had a receiver called Jake Kumro. And Rodgers said, I really want this guy on this team. He's a local guy. Mm-hmm. He went to UW-Whitewater in Wisconsin. Fans loved him. He was like a third wide receiver. And Aaron Rodgers came out and said, I want this guy on the team. The next day they cut him for another receiver that wasn't as good, and then became the line in the sand. This is my territory. You do your job, Aaron Rodgers, and we'll do our job. And they refused to, their egos just keep getting in the way. Mm-hmm. And then they draft Love when they could have just gotten Justin Jefferson. And we could have had Justin Jefferson if they were going to trade down. And they have refused to give Aaron Rodgers what he needed to go to the next level. They've refused to cash it all in like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did, when Brady was there. They just refused to do that. And it's all about Aaron Rodgers, you're the quarterback, you do your job, and we'll do ours. And I think because they're not getting over that ego. And now we have Jordan Love, who I agree, nobody can win with this team. And for me personally, I don't care. I want them to lose every game, every single game now, because I want a better team and I want a higher draft pick.
Man, Tammy, you are a smart
knowing the
fan.
Packers, they'll trade out of the top spot. Because that's what they do.
They'll take her back.
You do need a safety now. No, Tammy, spot on with the phone call. Loved it. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah.
And for giving us a little bit of the flavor, the local flavor, that everyone's kind of roasting this team, but it does go back to these wounds, I think, are still open with Rodgers only winning one Super Bowl. I say only one Super Bowl, but it felt like a disappointment, and it did feel like egos got in the way at the end.
It's going to make a great book. And I love that she pointed to the Jake Kumro story. I remember that. There's probably 10 different versions of that afterwards. The control battle in that building is amazing.
I think it
will
goes back
agree.
to, remember they fired his quarterbacks coach. Wasn't it Alex Van Pelt without him, Oh,
I forgot about that too.
And he was so upset about that.
But there's a reality. And at some point, Aaron, just like Tom Brady in New England, it can't last forever. I'm sorry to Tammy, but Aaron Rodgers is not going to be leading you to the number one seed for 50 years. At a certain point, quarterbacks get old. And I think even Rodgers, his last year, they were 8-9. It was starting to fall apart with Rodgers. That's what people are forgetting here.
No, but I think what Tammy's saying is like you had all these chances to go all in,
Yeah.
and it always felt like the organization was holding back, almost because like they didn't want to give in to Rodgers.
Well, also, too, they had this philosophy of building continual excellence, and that has paid off. They had all these years of success. They drafted Rodgers when they had Favre, so they thought that formula could work again.
Let's go back to the phones. Daniel is in Maywood. Daniel, is this you?
Hey, it's me, guys. How's it going?
Hey.
If you're watching on the live stream right now, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio or twitch.tv/CBS Sports Radio, Daniel Perloff is wearing the Rangers hat that you sent. Thank you very much.
My guy.
My Rangers, baby.
I just wanted to hear a fellow Ranger talking about how awesome that win was yesterday.
Amazing.
Yeah. Perloff will go look for a fellow Ranger fan. Daniel, what was the most satisfying moment last night?
Oh, man. Honestly, I don't think it was last night. I think we took the 2-1 series lead, and I told all my friends, I said, Bruce Bochy needs to go back to Eovaldi for the next game for that 3-1, and they said he was going to the bullpen with Andrew Heaney. And I looked at my friends and I said, that's the dumbest thing that anyone has ever done because Heaney has been trash. But when he came out and threw 5 innings and saved us that game, put us up 3-1, Bruce Bochy can do no wrong in my book. I'm naming my first son after him.
Daniel, settle show debate. We were debating, did the Rangers build a champion by pitching or by hitting home runs? Because EJ says home runs. Maggie says the traditional formula is pitching.
I think that they had just enough of both is what really did it. I think that they built a slugging team, and they slugged their way to victory when pitching was missing. But then we came into the postseason, and those pitchers that we spent a lot of money for and we traded a lot of draft picks for, they showed up. So it wasn't always there during the regular season. We got just enough from Dane Dunning. We got just enough from Andrew Heaney. Just enough from Jordan Montgomery to get us into the postseason. But then when the bats went cold, those pitchers were still there every single game. So Eovaldi giving us 6 shutouts when there were runners on base every inning, then that was one of the best pitching performances. I know Gallen threw perfect through 6 or perfect through 5. He was
amazing.
Phenomenal.
He's going from pitching a no-hitter to losing the World Series. It's wild. So, Daniel, for people like Perloff who don't believe that the Texas Rangers have this robust fan base, just quickly, what are Texas Ranger fans all about?
Texas Rangers, for me, I'm a millennial, so, I can't speak for the old souls, but, growing up in the 90s and watching, Pudge Rodriguez and Rafi Palmeiro and, Dean Palmer, we had awesome teams in the 90s that just never got over the hump, so we're not the same Dallas Cowboys fans that are used to dynasties. We had good players that got railroaded by the Yankees, so we've always been underdogs. And then moving into the 2000s with Blaylock and Young and just never being able to cross the border, 2011 when we lost the Cardinals was just
painful, soul
crushing.
One strike away.
But it was that was just kind of the epitome of to be a Rangers fan. You're never going to get a chance. The one chance you get, it fell apart just like that. So to get this win after 60 years as a franchise, to be able to watch it with my family, that was something I'm never going to forget.
See, look at that. Daniel,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Thank you for
Congrats.
the hat. Thank you for the fun note as well. We appreciate it, and congratulations to your Rangers. Are you convinced now?
Yeah, okay, fine. Well, I'm a Rangers fan now. I have the hat to prove it.
I know. Perloff's been here since day one. He's a day oneer. Let's go quickly to Dennis, who's in Union City. He's got a thought on another team in the news, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, now I want to make clear, I am not a Raiders fan. However, I do have friends that are. I'm a Rams fan. But I think by the Raiders doing what they're doing, they fired McDaniels, they fired the offensive coordinator, I don't know how to pronounce his name, the general manager, Ziegler. When I heard that yesterday morning, that tells me the Raiders are in a panic. And I want to know what you guys think. Do you agree or not?
Oh, yeah.
Well, panic. I mean, I think they had a right to be panicking. The team stinked.
I think Mark,
terrible.
I think that's a good way to describe it. Mark Davis thought he had the answer, and Josh, I heard his post-firing quotes. I think he thought Josh McDaniels was going to be the white knight and the savior because he came from that Belichick lineage. I mean, I get Mark Davis's theory. The Patriots were the dominant team of our football lifetime, so why not recreate that? It's amazing how it's had the opposite effect.
How many people have been felled by that exact logic? And you brought in the GM and the coach, both from the Patriots tree and Bill Belichick's tree, and Bill just never gives away the secrets. Like, he keeps guys very compartmentalized.
Yep.
Do your job. He lets people do their job, and I don't think he ever lets anyone in on the full scope of what he sees, because, you know, it's a lot like a lot of great players. I don't think they can teach it.
Yep.
You can't explain it. You know, Bob Gibson would go to the mound and tell someone, just throw strikes. I threw strikes. Just throw strikes. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Well, it's funny.
Michael Jordan had that too.
There are other great coaches who do nothing but spawn other great coaches. Obviously, that Mike Holmgren tree out of Green Bay. Tony Dungy had
Bill Walsh. Yep.
Bill Walsh. Well, Bill Walsh, Mike Holmgren.
Yeah.
A lot of great coaches do spawn other great coaches. Belichick's been the opposite. And the GMs are even arguably kind of worse. You know, poor Monty Ossenford in Arizona. Nothing's going well there. I do think, however, and we argued about this yesterday, everyone's coming back to New England. Next year, for the grand finale of Bill Belichick's career, he's bringing back all those failed people, and they're all going to be in the building. I don't know if it's going to work, but Josh McDaniels, Bill O'Brien, Dave Ziegler, Ziegler will definitely be back. They'll all be back in Foxborough. I don't know if it's going to work without Tom Brady, but at least they're coming home.
Listen. If anyone had future Alabama offensive coordinator written all over themselves, it is Josh McDaniels. You've got to go take a turn at the Saban, resurrection. I guess it's all in the family.
Yeah, I mean, they basically it's one team, Saban and Belichick.
Well, we do have some rumors going around about Belichick and where he could be coaching next. We'll get to that in a minute because Andrew Bogish is here with some headlines. Good morning.
Good morning again. He wasn't the better manager in the World Series, but Arizona's Torey Lovullo certainly gives the best quote.
I want to run away and hide for a few days. I want to go camping and just sit in the tent and suck my thumb, and eat ice cream. Is that the weirdest answer you guys have ever had?
Yes, it is.
I loved it.
It's far more heartbreaking than threatening to go on a bender after you reach the NLCS.
A couple laughs after losing the World Series. Why not?
I was just wondering, I'm like, so he went on the bender after they won the NLCS. Like, why wouldn't you just go back on the bender? Like, now you want solitude?
Yeah, you know what? To be honest, a tent, an ice cream, maybe not sucking my thumb, but like a TV, that sounds better to me than 36 hours of drinking and drugs.
Go to the Rogers retreat. That's a good time for it.
No.
Be totally out of the picture for about a week.
In darkness?
Yes.
But Rogers didn't get ice cream. He
got
got like tofu slipped through the door.
Right. He got peace of mind. That's what he got.
Luck of that story.
Like the Rays, Orioles, and Astros before them, the Diamondbacks could not win at home against the Rangers. Texas taking Game 5 last night, 5-0 to take all 3 games in Arizona and finish the postseason 11-0 on the road. It's the first world title in franchise history. Last night it included going hitless for 6 innings, but Nathan Eovaldi would not let Arizona score.
I don't know. I kind of joked around. I don't know how many rabbits I have in my hat left.
Eovaldi postgame on Fox. He allowed 4 hits and 5 walks, but 0 runs. Arizona was 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position, left 9 on base against him through 6. Mitch Garver's RBI single broke the scoreless tie in the 7th. Then 4 more in the 9th, capped by Marcus Semion's 2-run blast. Corey Seager got the Rangers' first hit last night, a simple single after homering in the previous 3 games. He's the World Series MVP for the 2nd time. The legendary and complex and divisive Bob Knight passed away yesterday at 83 after fighting dementia for years. When Knight retired from Texas Tech, he had the most wins in men's D1 history. He won 3 national titles at Indiana. The first came in 76, which remains the last undefeated champ. Thursday Night Football brings us to Pittsburgh. The Steelers hosting the Titans. Cam Hayward will be back on the Steeler D-line after a Week 1 groin injury. Will Levis makes the start for QB for Tennessee. Too bad we weren't on that Zoom call with Big Ten football coaches yesterday. After discussing some normal business, Jim Harbaugh hung up, and the rest of the crew told Commissioner Tony Petitti he needs to do something about Michigan's alleged sign stealing ASAP. The Lakers were down 19 to the Clippers in the first quarter last night. Then they were up 8 with 90 seconds to go, and then they found themselves in overtime.
Kawhi driving, loses it. Anthony Davis has got it ahead to Reeves. Reeves to the basket, alley-oop to LeBron! Slam dunk! Timeout! Clippers! A perfectly executed alley-oop from Austin Reeves to LeBron. Wow!
John Ireland on Lakers radio. LA finally won 130-125, ending an 11-game losing streak to their roommates. LeBron finished with 35, the most points anyone has scored in season 21 or later. Klay Thompson's jumper with 2:10 left got the Warriors past the Kings, 102-101. The Nuggets took their first loss, 110-89 in Minnesota. The Mavs are 4-0 for the first time since 2014, down in the Bulls, 114-105. And the Celtics destroyed the Pacers, 155-104. Those are the most points Boston has scored since the 58-59 campaign.
I know. I'm sorry. I know nobody is really going to be that into the Pacers, season, but like they got to be setting some kind of records here for points allowed.
Well, but they had a game where they scored 143
and still lost,
and now they just gave up 155.
Wow!
But didn't they lose that game where they scored 143?
No, I think they won that game.
That'd be crazy. But like they are giving up an insane amount of points. Like this, we got to watch this for some potential history being made.
We got to learn who's on the Pacers to see who's not playing defense to give up 155. Hockey last night, the Flyers losing like the Phillies, 5-2 to the Sabres. That's 3 losses in a row, 5 in their last 6, and a 2-0 win for the Columbus Crew over the Atlanta United to start their MLS first round best of 3. Guys, back to you.
Okay, I got a trivia question real quick for all of you guys. Because I was shocked when you said Corey Seager won his 2nd World Series MVP.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Can you name 4 people who have ever done it? Can you name the other 3?
Who's won multiple World Series MVPs.
Yeah, just try and take a guess. I'm not saying expecting you to get
Ortiz.
Reggie Jackson.
Reggie Jackson's one, not Ortiz. I mean, Corey Seager is in crazy elevated air here. It's unbelievable. Surefire Hall of Famers.
Are most of them deceased?
These are old. One of them is actually still alive, but he's older. 2 older players. Think of World Series dominance. And I'll tell you.
Like Joe DiMaggio or something?
Pitchers.
Oh, Sandy?
Sandy's one.
Sandy Koufax still alive.
And
so we need one more.
Yeah. A dominant World Series pitcher.
Whitey Ford.
Bob Gibson.
I was thinking Gibson. Oh,
yeah.
I'm so mad I didn't say it.
World Series. So it's funny. Corey Seager,
like
Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson, and Reggie Jackson. Who does not fit in that list?
Reggie Jackson.
Corey Seager. I mean, that is so random that he's won 2 because that's an incredible, illustrious prize. Anyway, that's a weird thought.
That is a good trivia question. 855-212-4CBS. Thank you, Bogush. 855-212-4227. Okay. We got a lot to do. A lot. Coming up, we do hear from the newest head coach from the Las Vegas Raiders. What's going to be different this time around? Get to that in a minute. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
for LeBron James' minutes limit. LeBron played Today's Thursday Night Football preview is sponsored by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The Steelers host the Titans. Pittsburgh's a 2.5-point favorite on FanDuel. Try to rebound off a tough 20-10 loss in Jacksonville that was on the officials in Week 8. The playoffs started today. Mike Tomlin and crew would be in, and the Titans would be out. Tennessee is 3-4 and 11th in the AFC. This is a juicy little bizarre matchup. An injured Kenny Pickett against Will Levis. Sign me up.
This is going to be a real step up in weight class for Will Levis.
Yeah, no doubt.
I know the Falcons' defense is not terrible, but winning against the Falcons at home in your debut versus walking into Pittsburgh to face that defense is going to be much different.
I find the Kenny Pickett rebound kind of fascinating, too, because he looked down and out walking into the locker room in a game where if he come back against the Jags last week, I think they might win that game.
Mm-hmm.
But that turned quickly, that he was healthy. So I wonder, can he get one hit and is he going to be out of the game tonight?
I don't know. This is going to be, it is an interesting one. Finally, we get some the Pittsburgh Steelers have been playing a lot of 17-13 games. Can I make a prediction?
Yeah.
Will Levis first half interception.
Oh, well.
He's going to throw one. And I'm not saying that they're not going to win the game or that he's not going to rebound and eventually have a good game. Who knows where this Levis story is going, but I do think he'll throw a pick in the first half. He's going to get rattled out there.
We did this in the Sports Minute where Bogus said Ryan Tannehill will not start and they're going with Will Levis. If Tannehill was healthy, would they really not go back to Will Levis after throwing 4 touchdowns last week? I think it's the Will Levis era has fully begun.
Yeah, Tannehill's gone, right?
But they're framing it's only because of the injury that Tannehill's not playing. That can't be the case.
Well,
unless Levis comes down to earth today.
Maybe they want to leave, a little wiggle room. Like if he throws, 4 picks as opposed to 4 touchdowns, maybe they want to leave the door open. I don't understand why the Titans are trying to win games. Like, this doesn't make sense to me.
Vrabel can't tank.
If Levis
that dude can't tank.
The coaches never want to tank because the losses go on their record. But if Levis comes back down to earth and is bad, then you got to start looking for your next quarterback, right?
Well, it's hard in the AFC South. No, I think the Titans have older players. Derrick Henry's not young. You tank. There's only one team that's going to get Caleb Williams. So you're really going to tank for Drake May? Is it that different to get a Drake May at 2 compared to a Bo Nix at 8? I think that they'll be fine. Honestly, it's so funny because I'm a guy who was a fan of the 76ers and the process, which was this crazy year-long tanking thing. And you want everybody to tank. I feel like you're just being completely Machiavellian about all these teams.
Listen, if Will Levis is going to be, if this is him, then great. You're awesome. You're set up. You didn't trade DeAndre Hopkins. You didn't trade Derrick Henry, even though he's the last year of his deal. Go head forward with Will Levis. That's also fine. That's amazing. We thought he was going to be a first-round pick, and he ended up falling to the top of the second round. But if you're not going to believe in Levis and he's not the guy for the future, then what else? You're going to do another Band-Aid year with another, journeyman
Well, what if you can make the playoffs this year? Look at the schedule. I mean, you're facing a hobbled, messed-up Pittsburgh Steelers team. They're a disaster. You're facing Tampa Bay next week. Jacksonville, anything can happen in an AFC South game. Then you got Carolina, Indianapolis, Houston twice.
But you're thinking in the short term, and I'm thinking of the long term.
Yeah.
The Titans have been a playoff team,
right,
and that they've been impressive at times. But where's it gotten them? Like, if you don't solve the quarterback thing where they went from Mariota to Tannehill, and to be fair, Tannehill did okay for them until they got to the postseason as a 1 seed, and he threw 3 picks against the Cincinnati Bengals. And it really hasn't been the same since.
Well, I'm saying you're right. I'm saying 9-8 would be a successful season. You're saying that's limbo. What's the point? What
Mediocrity.
are we doing here?
What are you doing?
Yeah, but you can't go. You're not going to get the number 1 pick this year. There's some real tank teams out there, so you might as well go for it. You're in a great division to do something. Honestly, I think that Texans hype is already dying down. The Colts are a mess. There's a lot of chances if they go 9-8 and get the playoffs. That feels better than going 4-13 and being the number 5 pick.
I just find it very hard to believe that there's a wild card team in the AFC South. The Jags are going to win the division, and I don't think there's another team coming from the AFC South. I think that other wild card teams are going to either come from the AFC North or the AFC East.
Yeah.
So that's me. 855-2124-CBS. So Antonio Pierce takes over as the interim head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, who fired their head coach Josh McDaniels, GM Dave Ziegler, and also their offensive coordinator, Mick Lombardi. So Antonio Pierce was meeting the media yesterday, said he was born for the Raider job.
And had opportunities to leave and go to other organizations. I decided not to. The short story, the matter of fact is I grew up in Compton, California. I was born a Raider. I was born with the Raiders rolling in the Coliseum in L.A. I was rolling with NWA, talking straight out of Compton, rocking Raider hats. So when the opportunity came to work with Josh and Pat Graham and Dave, I jumped on it. So that's what set me up for this. I was born this way.
All right, so nostalgia is the theme of culture right now. Everyone loves nostalgia, and Antonio Pierce really digging back deep to go to the NWA and the Ice Cube days to prove how much he deserves this Raider job. Are you buying this? Does that matter?
I'll tell you right now, no. Interim coaches, we get all excited about. We made a big deal out of Jeff Saturday, and Jeff
Saturday was a different situation.
It's always the same thing. Oh my gosh, this interim guy is so fiery. He's so great. This guy is awesome. We're going to hire someone else next year. That's the same story. And Antonio Pierce is just going to be, it's not exactly like Jeff Saturday, but it's going to be this, rah, let's go.
People were excited about Jeff Saturday?
Yeah, they were excited as in he was interesting. I mean, yeah.
They signed him off the ESPN set.
I think he was the number 1 story in football for about a month. And he was doing these press conferences, and everyone was.
It wasn't positive though.
Well, he won his first game
against the Raiders, ironically.
Yeah, I know. But I think a lot of people were annoyed that he got this opportunity. Either way.
Yeah, either way, though. But this Antonio Pierce is like, I'm going to insert toughness in this team. You might win a few games, and everyone's going to say, this is great, but it never, ever works out. He's never going to get this job. The last time that happened was Doug Marrone in 2016, who got 1 year off the Jags or something. It's just not very rare for an interim coach to get the job.
But it might set him up for a different job if he gives this team the new coach bump. Let's hear again from Pierce, who says being a former player is an advantage in this position.
I've been around these guys for 2 years now as a linebacker coach. And I made my presence known both in the linebacker room, the defensive line room, the quarterback room, the running back room. I'm a former player. I touch former players. I can relate to them. I've done the same things they've done. I've walked the same paths they walked. I felt the same pain they felt. So there's nothing or any emotional ride or roller coaster that they haven't gone through this year or over the 2 years I've been with them that I haven't felt.
There you go. So, dipping into his own playing days. I'm telling you, I think that there was part of this, which is talent for the Raiders and a devoid of talent. That top-tier talent they, of course, have, but depth they don't really have. And another part, I think, was, give a bleep factor, toughness factor, wanting it factor, and maybe they do follow Antonio Pierce. Now, his first order of business was to change quarterbacks. It's going to be Aiden O'Connell, the rookie, over Jimmy G. He explains the new philosophy now with AOC.
And the key thing is we just talked about a lot of weapons on our team and how to get to them. We're going to start a young quarterback. Got to protect him. Last outing, we didn't protect him very well. Didn't protect the football. So it's going to go to that. For our whole entire offensive, turnover-free football, get back to playing that kind of style of football where you kind of impose your will and play with ill intent. And you can do that with offense. You can do that with skill guys. I mean, we got Jacoby Byers. If you've not watched him crack a defensive back or a linebacker, you're crazy. He's not afraid to throw it in there. So, and we got still one of the best running backs in the game. And he understands that, and he knows his role and what's going to happen going forward, and that's what's going to help the quarterback.
Makes it sound pretty simple.
I mean, He'll probably get 2 wins in the next 2 weeks.
Well, they're playing the Giants this week and they're favored. This is actually a perfect time to change coaches. If you do want the new coach bump, like if they wanted to keep losing and get a high draft pick, they should have just stayed with McDaniels. I mean, he'll take care of the losing for you. But if they actually do want to try to right this thing and change it, you change the coach a week before you play a team who's worse than you, and you win and try to get the vibes going in a good direction.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think McDaniels could have beaten the Giants too. I'm not sure that he wouldn't have been favored in this one as well.
Lost to the Bears. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, this is in Vegas, right? All you have to do is hand the ball to Josh Jacobs 50 times. I'm sure that's what Pierce is going to do here. I don't know. I mean, interim coaches, again, the bump is false though. It always ends up. This team is what it is. I'd be shocked if this worked out in any positive way for the Raiders, because the problems with the Raiders run so much deeper.
I know, but the Raiders just felt this interim bump with Rich Bisaccia a couple years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Okay.
They won 10 games, and then they went to McDaniels, and it all fell apart.
So they face these 2 New York teams, and then they bring Aiden O'Connell, AOC, to Miami, then the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then another game at the Chiefs.
It's going to get tougher.
It's tough as a rebuilding team. Honestly, if I look at the problems with this team, those terrible Mike Mayock drafts are still hurting them. They just
I think it's Gruden also has his fingerprints on that.
Well, okay.
Yes.
I'm just saying the GM, those terrible picks, you can't whiff on your first round pick so many years in a row. You think of Alex Weatherwood, Cleveland Farrell, Damon Arnett, Gary and Conley, go down the list. And even the guys that were good, just now they're gone. Darren Waller, Devontae Adams is going to be gone next year. Hunter Renfro's a disaster. Jacobs will probably be gone. He's on a tag, right?
Yeah.
So he's going to be gone. Where are you as a team? Even if you're Antonio Pierce, do you want this team? Maybe I like what you said about a try-up. What's the upside? What's happening here?
Well, I mean, it's still one of 32 jobs, so it's always going to be, attractive just for that. And I do think there is the Raiders could be, they're a sleeping giant in terms of a fan base and in terms of relevance. It doesn't take a lot to get the Raiders back in the national conversation. The Raiders are that kind of team where you're like, the NFL is just better when the Raiders are good. I believe that, and they just haven't been for such a long time. I don't know if Antonio Pierce is going to be the guy to do it, because this is a big lift, and now you're going to a rookie quarterback. They need a lot more stability. Is this a quarterback of the future? They're going to have to hire a general manager.
None of it matters, because Mark Davis is the owner. I mean, Harbaugh or Belichick could come in next year, and you're still going to have the owner problem.
Isn't anyone kind of wondering, why did they just keep Derek Carr?
Well, I don't know if he was the fix either.
He's not the fix, but at least Adams would have been happy in getting the ball. 855-2124-CBS. Coming up, paying tribute to an icon. We'll do that next. Don't move.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
She can run the 40 faster than Tom Brady. He got a perfect score on the Wonderlic. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Congratulations, Texas Rangers win the World Series. Perloff now a fan because one of our listeners sent him a hat, and that's all it takes. Of course, the Rangers get the first World Series title in the history of their franchise. I love it. I love it when teams finally break through. I think it gives hopes to all the other, franchises who have come close, who have never won, that maybe your turn will come up. You'll get Yahtzee, and it'll be time for you to finally celebrate. So I love it. And
maybe you'll spend billions and billions and billions of dollars over 20 years and sign every great free agent and finally get lucky.
However you do it,
if you think this
means
the Bills are going to win a Super Bowl, you are so delusional.
I'm talking about all the other franchises, the Minnesota Vikings. I'm talking about the Seattle Mariners. I'm talking about all the teams that have been waiting patiently and the fans who've been waiting patiently. You get another one that gets checked off the list last night. Texas Rangers, boom, you're champs.
It's not like the Cubs who beat a 106-year drought here. I think I see what you're saying in spirit. This doesn't feel like this Cinderella story, this little underdog out of Dallas. I don't get that vibe from this team.
No, this was a little more of a Goliath team. They're top 10 payroll, 8th overall, so it's not like they weren't spending money. They brought in some big-time key acquisitions in the last couple of years, and however you get it done, you can either be the Moneyball situation and try to get done with this small payroll like the Tampa Bay Rays, or you can try to be a team that outspends. Either way, they're calling you champion, and that's what you have to call the Texas Rangers now. And, kudos to them. Kudos to the fans. Perloff thinks that more people in Texas are interested in a Friday night high school football game than be interested in the Rangers. But I think it's different.
I mean, that's no slight to the Rangers. There's obsession with a Friday night football game in Texas, and there's a lot of seats there. No, I do think it is a funny fan base because obviously you think of Dallas, you think of the Cowboys. It's the most iconic team in sports. So they're intense. I'm so happy for them, but I can't, it's just not quite doing it for me in the sense that I'm frustrated as a baseball fan that I want a dynasty. We need a dynasty now. Don't we need somebody to dominate this sport so when we tune in for the World Series, we can root for or against them? Kind of like the Yankees in the 90s or the Lakers in basketball or, back in the day with the Cowboys in football. We need that team a little bit.
I don't know if you're going to get that, though, because, and you've made this point, and I'll agree with you, it does feel like baseball and hockey are the two most crapshoot playoffs that we have in the postseason. And I know NFL teams can break through maybe a year or two ahead of schedule, like we saw the Cincinnati Bengals get to a Super Bowl maybe a year ahead of schedule. But for the most part, you feel like the best teams are going to be there, at the end. Same thing with basketball. 7-game series, it's impossible, feels like, for the better team to not prevail. You're just given too many chances. Hockey has this element of anything can happen, and of course, baseball as well. So I think it's going to be harder for dynasties to happen.
No, you're absolutely right.
And I know the Tampa Bay Lightning have won, but I'm just saying moving forward.
And if I was going to nitpick, it did lack a little star power in the sense that you could have had a Shohei or somebody. That's the other thing that we're not having. The best players in baseball are not necessarily always getting to the postseason. You don't have Mike Trout. You don't have Shohei Ohtani. You don't have Aaron Judge here. So I think that was a little bit like, we know ratings are down. Let's not kid ourselves. Sure. It would be a little more palatable to casual fans if you had much bigger names in there.
Well, one thing for Shohei Ohtani to actually, maybe you could take away from this is Nate Eovaldi, who pitched brilliantly in this postseason, including winning 5 games, and 3 of them were closeout games, and was awesome last night, is a guy who's had 2 Tommy John surgeries and has come back to pitch brilliantly, like excellent. Yeah. So Shohei had to undergo second. You've had Jacob deGrom's had a second. Other these guys who have had these second Tommy Johns, you're wondering how are they going to respond to it? Well, Nate Eovaldi might be, the guy to look at and say, look at how good he's pitching.
All right. That's what I'd rather.
If I was Ohtani's agent, I'd be saying
like the ability to bring Shohei into the conversation was well done there.
Thank you.
It'd be even better if he was on the field pitching at the end or hitting at the end. I say go hitter. Stop with the pitching nonsense. But yeah, it was a great series. I'm still mad the Phillies weren't there. I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of bitter feelings here. Right. We would have beaten the Rangers, but whatever.
Well, now you're a Ranger fan, so
yeah. If you can't beat it, if you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. So there you go, another World Series in the books. We also got the sad news last night that Bobby Knight had passed away. And Bobby Knight, 83 years old. I mean, to call his legacy complicated is probably a massive understatement. He was an incredible winner in the sport of college basketball with the 3 national titles, 24 NCAA appearances in 29 years, the undefeated team in 76. I mean, you can go on and on. The gold medal that he won with all amateurs. And that's part of the story. But his infamous temper and anger is almost just as much a part of the story as the winning. And depending on who you talk to, he was either this incredible mentor, father figure, tough love, helping young boys grow into men. Or on the flip side, he was like a ruthless bully and somebody who, in a lot of ways, maybe did damage and harm to his legacy because he never could get his anger under control.
It's interesting. When I was playing high school basketball and JV college basketball, I want to point out, Bobby Knight was the role model for coaches. Sort of this tough guy, no nonsense. I've even heard interviews where Bobby Knight just intentionally would call out players to get the wanted effect. That was the coaching style for years. I think Bobby Knight's impact on other coaches is almost immeasurable. basically, I don't know who was first, Bill Parcells or Bobby Knight, but I feel
They
like
coached together. At one point, Bill Parcells was on his staff as like a assistant at West Point.
I feel like the Bill Belichick coaching style comes from Bobby Knight. Just put everything, winning is all that matters. Personal feelings don't matter. So in that sense, I could argue he's almost as impactful as any coach we've had in our lifetime, because so many coaches wanted to be him. And then, of course, Coach K came from him in many ways, who is the premier college basketball coach of all time. So I think Bobby Knight, I know the negative stuff, but today I think about, wow, that he really changed the sport.
Yeah, the thing is, though, the sport and like society changed, and all of a sudden not all of a sudden, it was a little bit more drip, drip, drip like that, but things weren't just tolerated anymore like
Definitely.
they were in the 70s and the 80s and maybe even the early 90s. And obviously in the 2000s, when he puts his hand on a player and kind of chokes the player, he went under a zero tolerance policy, and then he kind of grabbed a student who then later said like, "Hey, what up, Knight?" or something like that, and he got fired for it. I mean, that's just a couple of the things. There's the more. It's funny because at the time, I think when he was throwing chairs across the court and screaming at everybody and officials and all that, it was almost like idolized, like people liked it. And then all of a sudden it turned because society turned. And now it's you can't be abusive like that to people and get away with it.
No, which is definitely good. I mean, the counter argument is now kids are getting participation trophies and nobody cares about winning. And the NBA is so desperate that they're doing an in-season tournament because the title's not the thing anymore. Sorry, EJ. I'm
to
just
get
saying,
people to care.
The old school win comes first and personality does not matter. There was that mentality that a lot of coaches adapted. And I understand the merits of it. And let's say one thing about it. The guy was obviously a brilliant basketball mind.
Definitely.
Brilliant. So,
and ironically, it was like a beautiful style of basketball too. Motion offense, positionless basketball. It was like very beautiful and evolved for a guy in his who personally was not a very evolved thinker in terms of how rigid he was. Didn't seem like he was really open to a lot of ideas about how to do things differently because he always thought he was right. And so the basketball was almost free form, but the man wasn't free form.
But if he had changed and become more modern, it wouldn't have worked either. I can't ever see that happening. You're right. He had his time and it wore out. I got to be honest, I would have never played for him. I would have never covered him, too, because he was obnoxious to the press.
Yep.
I think that would be miserable.
Joined ESPN later on to call games, which people thought was like a little bit height of hypocrisy because of how bad he was to the press.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously a bully. Yep. And thank God people have turned. I mean, I still think there's a ton of bullying in our society, but people at least acknowledge that's the worst thing you can be. Today, though, I hear these players and coaches talking about him, and just something was special there. There was something. I think you can say the negative, but there was something special basketball wise that has to be honored as well.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Speaking of coaches, we were talking before about the Las Vegas Raiders who have changed head coaches. Obviously, Josh McDaniels is going to be gone. He is gone. And now Antonio Pierce is in. Nathan is in Indianapolis, wanted to talk about it. Good morning, Nathan. How are you?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me on. And first and foremost, so glad you guys made the move to the morning. So now I can actually listen to you and get ready for work and all that good stuff.
Awesome.
But I wanted to just chime in on the Saturday hire. So, I'm 40 years old, was rooting for the Colts since the Jeff George and Jim Harbaugh era. However, the fan base was not happy when we brought them in, and we knew that the season was pretty much over when we hired him. And,
yes,
being a diehard
definitely.
Colts fan, I have a kind of a close personal connection with the Irsay family. My wife actually runs around with the daughters, so we hear a lot of stuff at times. And the big thing is, and I don't think a lot of people realize, Jim Irsay, and yes, he's had some struggles in the past, but from an owner standpoint, he is one of the most liked, knowledgeable football IQ owners in the NFL. And so when we hired Saturday, it was a disaster. The season was over, and it was to just see what we could do at the end to get a high draft pick. So
interesting.
I thought I'd share that.
Oh.
You didn't like the Saturday hire, but you still believe that Irsay knows what he's doing and is respected.
100%.
Interesting.
The goal after the Matt Ryan disaster and then hiring Saturday, we knew the season was absolutely over.
Yeah.
Because one thing about Irsay is, he hired Reggie Wayne as the receivers coach. He hired Robert Mathis as the linebacker coach. He was bringing back that Peyton Manning nostalgia. And, I get it. But, however, when he did that, we knew it was over.
Nathan, thank you so much for the phone call.
My guy Shane Steichen has been a bit of a disappointment there in Indy. He can run a good offense. His game time decisions, like all young coaches, have been just awful.
Oh, the management, the ending game stuff.
Dude, he's screwing up left and right.
I think he's getting a pass, though, because Anthony Richardson is out for the rest of the year, and you got Gardner Minshew.
And actually, they're putting up a lot of yards. I think he's a really good offensive coordinator. And remember the guy in, of course, Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, I think was 2-14. It's not a judgment of where he is. I like that. You want people to tank, so hiring Jeff Saturday was a brilliant tank move by Irsay. Come on, you didn't recognize the genius.
I mean, that's the Machiavellian moment. That's what I said. If the Raiders wanted to lose and they wanted to get a high draft pick, just stay with Josh McDaniels. He would do plenty of losing for you.
Yeah, okay.
There was no way that team was going to all of a sudden rally around him.
We need some wins. Let's promote the linebacker coach.
But Antonio Pierce is in here talking really tough, about culture and getting back to the old Raiders.
And they're probably
NWA.
They'll probably beat the Giants and people buy into it, but the interim coach thing just does not work.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We also touched on the Packers earlier today, and the fact that Jordan Love is basically on a 10-game tryout now, and it hasn't gone exactly how people thought it would go. Andy is in Pittsburgh. He's got a thought on it. Good morning, Andy. How are you?
Notice about the Packers over the years. You can count on one hand how many players they get from in colleges, Notre Dame, Alabama, and stuff like that. They're getting from less-known colleges like Randall Cobb from Kentucky, Donald Driver, Alcorn State, Brett Favre, Southern Miss. They've always been like that. And now Jordan Love, Utah State. They might, and of course Aaron Rodgers, California, Power 5 conference, but whoever thinks about a quarterback from California? if it's from USC, Southern California, Trojans, oh yeah, but they don't get them from big-time colleges like that.
Andy, this is brilliant. They think they're smarter than everyone, right? So they can get the small school guys. You nailed it.
Wait a minute. Hold on, Andy. You've given us something to think about. Andy, thank you for the phone call. Well, now we've got to go through the route. Of course they've got guys from big-time colleges.
Well, yeah, but did Christian Watson, Mr. North Dakota State?
Did Rashawn Gary went to Michigan?
Yeah, but I mean, generally, he's absolutely right. Look at this bizarre group of colleges they draft from. A.J. Dillon from Boston College. How many Boston College pros are there besides him and Zay Flowers?
Matt Ryan was there forever as the MVP of the league.
Oh, I think Andy nailed it. They are too smart.
Wait, is this possibly true? I don't think so.
I'm just looking at their wide receiver room.
The wide receiver.
Yeah, Nevada.
Yeah, Nevada.
North Dakota State.
Okay, but you don't have receivers. Haven't they shown us in the past that you actually don't necessarily need to be from a big school to be an all-time great receiver? Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, these guys weren't at these massive schools. They're two of the best ever. T.O., the same. Okay, Tennessee, Chattanooga.
I'm looking at the draft. They did take Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt from Georgia, but generally, I'll bet you they have the most diverse college list of any drafting team. This makes perfect sense.
I don't think so. And that's the other thing. Wide receivers, like you got Devontae Adams from Fresno State. Like you can get wide receivers from not Power 5.
Maggie, they have a quarterback from Utah State throwing to a wide receiver from North Dakota State and a wide receiver from Nevada. That has never happened in the NFL.
Wait, has it?
No. And obviously, he's exactly right.
Now.
The great teams, I think they did have a lot of small college guys. Obviously, Favre, Southern Miss, nobody knew that was coming.
Right, but I guess like when it comes to receivers, that's the place where I'm okay with them being from a lesser-known school.
What are you talking about? 90% of the receivers are from 3 schools.
No,
from
but I'm just
Georgia, Alabama, and whatever.
I know, but I listen to Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens. You want to go to Antonio Brown? I mean, you don't have to go to these massive Georgias and Alabamas to be a great receiver. I mean, listen, you can. You could be Justin Jefferson.
I feel like if you're not from LSU or Alabama,
yeah,
okay. But generally, though, there are some small school guys here. I think it's point. Utah State. Name another Utah State Aggie in the NFL.
Okay, but quarterbacks, we could talk about North Dakota's quarterbacks and North Dakota State, and at least we acknowledge that good quarterbacks can
find a wide receiving quarterback core that's more random than that, and I will say you win.
I don't think I can. I'm gonna look though. Edward is in Arizona. Good morning, Edward. How are you? Edward, you there? Hello.
Oh, yes. I'm doing well. I just want to say you guys are great in the morning. You know, ever since DA left, I was unsure, and I think you guys are awesome and a great fill-in for his shoes. And just wanted to talk about the Raiders and how I think they made a great move at letting go of Josh McDaniels and moving forward, and Aiden O'Connell being the quarterback. I think it's a great move.
You're excited about this. AOC
yeah,
era.
I'm a huge Raiders fan.
Hey, Edward, why did they go to Aiden O'Connell before? Why? I thought it was weird that Brian Hoyer game. I guess
I think it was because it was against the Patriots, right?
Yeah, I thought that I thought McDaniels really messed up that game and the Bears game big time.
Well, if you notice, McDaniels, ex-Patriot, brought in all these Patriots, Jacoby Myers, Johnson, the fullback, and decided to try to make the Raiders the Patriots as well as Brian Hoyer. That's a gut feeling I have, but I'm excited for the future. You know, McDaniels is the past. It was a dark time, and I didn't like it from the get-go when we had him.
Well, and you were right to be weary of that. Edward, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. Still trying to find a more random wide receiver room. I'm like, the Rams, but it's just really Cooper Kupp, who's from a small school, and Nakua went to Washington, and Tutu Atwell went to Louisville. So,
well, and mix in the quarterback too, and then let's see.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, and Stafford went to Georgia, so I really can't do that. I'll keep looking.
You're not going to find. Was Romeo Dobbs? Was he UNLV or Nevada? I'm sorry,
Nevada. No,
Nevada.
You're on the money. Yeah.
I'm going to keep looking. I'll find a more random quarterback and receiver combination, random colleges that they went to, smaller schools. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Okay, coming up, we still have a lot more to do, including memories of Coach Bobby Knight from people who were inspired by him. We've got more from the Michigan scandal as well. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. Heated argument here on who's the most random drafting team in the NFL. Because Andy from Pittsburgh just said the Packers rely too much on small schools. I am looking at some of the receivers in history, Maggie, and they do not get more random. Donald Driver of Alcorn State fame. Devontae Adams, Fresno State. The Packers have a formula. You're trying to beat it, but we're going to get back to that argument later in the show.
We definitely will. Who's got the most random wide receiver room? But that gets put on hold right now as we are remembering an icon today, and that is Bobby Knight, who passed away last night at the age of 83, and his impact on, well, not just basketball, but also specifically on coaches. And Chris Walker is an analyst now with CBS Sports Network. He is a former college basketball coach and coached at Texas Tech. He played his college basketball at Villanova. Chris, thanks so much for the time today. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How you guys doing?
Well, yeah, we're doing great. And we're remembering Bobby Knight, a very complicated man, but obviously an excellent basketball coach. And that's probably too much of an understatement. He won the 3 titles at Indiana, Chris, but you coached at Texas Tech. What was the impact that Bobby Knight had at that school?
You know what? He had a tremendous impact. You're talking about the school. They had Gerald Myers, who was a long-time coach there, and they had some measure of success. But when Bob Knight came there, it shined the light on Lubbock, Texas. Certainly made it easier for a guy like myself to be the head coach there as well. And now, you know, with Chris Beard, who was also, I don't know if people know this, he was a disciple of Bobby Knight, coached with him for his entire tenure that he was there at Texas Tech. And you see the success that he had. But again, he put Lubbock on the map as far as basketball-wise, and guys like myself had a chance to go in there and kind of, off that success, try to make that place as sexy as possible, and Chris Beard took him to the championship game. So he was certainly a polarizing figure, as you mentioned, but he was a personality. He was a demigod in a time where, you know, in the 70s and 80s, where that was something that was somewhat acceptable to be a disciplinarian. He was from the Army, where they hired him from. But Maggie, and you're talking about a winner. You're talking about a guy who not only coached 3 national championships, played in 3 national championships as a player, won one, and some of his disciples. I obviously worked for Steve Alford at New Mexico, who's one of the greatest college basketball players, probably the greatest shooter of all time, who loved him dearly. So I know both sides of the story. Obviously, the media and the people in Indiana know one side. I know the other side as well, but a great coach nonetheless.
You know, Chris, when I was coming up in high school basketball, I felt like all the coaches looked up to Bobby Knight. They wanted to be Bobby Knight. I don't think it's like that anymore. But you graduated college in 92. Was he sort of the top of the coaching mountain back then?
Listen, I played for one of the most fiery coaches of all time, Rolly Massimino. So I certainly know what it's like to be coached hard but loved at the same time. And think about it. When Dick Vitale, anytime Indiana played, he called him the General, and he said his full name, Robert Montgomery Knight. So there was a level of respect on all sides for what Bobby Knight was to the industry back then. And remember, he left the game as the winningest all-time coach. So, again, you're talking about a guy who got kids to come to Bloomington, Indiana. You know, put Bloomington, Indiana on the map. The last undefeated team, we thought the year before Stock May didn't get hurt in the NCAA tournament, they would have been undefeated for 2 straight years. So the way people looked at him, as I said before, he was a standard. Emotion offense, you know, he was a guy, you know, one of his favorite sayings was dumb gets you beat more than smart helps you win. And I internalize that today, even when I recruited, even when I do television, when players aren't smart, and in the days of advanced metrics and analytics, you know, we talk about a player like LeBron and how great he is, but the thing we talk about right after that is how smart he is. You talk about a guy like Tom Brady and his talent, or lack thereof of physical gifts. You talk about how smart he is, and he was a throwback to that time where discipline today would not. I shouldn't say it would be frowned upon, but with social media, I don't believe, and I might be in the minority when I say this. When people remember someone will say, "Hey, Wilt Chamberlain wouldn't be the same player today in the NBA than he was back then. Jim Brown, no way, he could have ran over, Joey Bosa and some of those guys that play linebacker today." Well, that's like saying Bobby Knight, because of his ways, would not have won today. I think he would have adapted and maybe have been, again, the same personality, but not as polarizing.
Chris Walker is joining us, CBS Sports Network analyst and former college basketball coach at Texas Tech and former player at Villanova, and a few more stops in between. And he joins us now to talk about the legacy of Coach Knight. It's funny because, Chris, I think that if Bobby Knight could have evolved, do you think he would have, even in the time we saw from the 60s and 70s all the way through the 2000s? It felt like that was what ultimately, if anything, did hold him back. It was that he just could never get his temper under control.
Again, as we talk about in today's world with social media and all of the things that happen, like I just remember being a young coach, and I don't want to date myself here, guys, but I was a coach before they had cell phones. So
it's okay. We remember life before cell phones too.
I remember the business. We live in a time. I lived in a time when we didn't have cell phones as a kid. I would go to my dorm room and they would write messages on the door saying, "Hey, someone called." Like payphones worlds I lived in. And I remember when the business changed when cell phones were introduced to recruiting. It changed the whole world, changed the way the most operandi's of a lot of people acted. All of a sudden now, summer basketball, AAU basketball, the empowerment of players today is different. Now with the advent of the NIL, with the transfer portal, I was listening to something that Dabo Sweeney was saying the other day, and he was like, anti-transfer portal, and look what's happening to the Clemson program. It's either adapt or die, So I believe that Bobby Knight, again, staunch disciplinarian, a tremendous basketball coach, would have had to somewhat adapt if he wanted to continue to be successful. And, some of the stuff is well documented. Obviously, as I said before, I coached for Steve Alford, so I know a lot of glowing things about him. But, one piece of history is that I worked for Jan Brandikoff at Pepperdine, and we beat them in Buffalo in the NCAA tournament when they had A.J. Guyton. And incidentally, that was the last game he ever coached at Indiana because he had the incident the next fall. So, again, just a lot of history there. But as far as people believing and having this reverence of Bobby Knight, people love the purity. If you love the purity of the game, and Bobby Knight was a guy that you revered. On the other side, I am a person that believes in treating people with respect, that does not believe in bullying, that does not believe in intimidating people. But at the same time, kids today grow up with a different level of the way they see the world. And maybe that part is what we're saying would not have worked for Bobby Knight.
You know, Chris, Coach K, obviously a mentee of Bobby Knight. How is Coach K different than Bobby Knight? I know he's also a disciplinarian, but it feels like he evolved into something that Bobby Knight could not.
You're right, and that's my general point, is that I believe that he would have been a Coach K to a degree. And Coach K saw, that, kids were changing. He got his top recruits when he first built the program in Mark Allery and Tommy Amaker and Johnny Dawkins. And then the rest is history and the legacy that they built on the John Shire. They're still getting the number one recruiting class. They do a great job of promoting that program. And they're not the size of an Indiana or the size of a Purdue, these big-time schools or Michigan with 100,000 football fans. But yet they've maintained that excellence. So he learned that. His genesis, the epicenter of him is Army basketball and Coach Knight, who he revered, and even Coach Alford, who they revered this man. So again, there are some things that people would quote unquote, say that, were very negative. And I would agree. There are some things that probably crossed the lines. But at the same time, you cannot deny the unparalleled success. I mean, think about it. There are a lot of coaches that have coached since Coach Knight has been in this game. And only Jim Calhoun, who I think is one of the greatest coaches of all time, other than Coach K, have won 3 national championships in the modern era. It is very difficult to do what he did. But after he won his last national championship in '87, when Keith Smart made that shot, again, that's when in the 80s and 90s and 2000, kids' culture of basketball started to change. And that may be where, Coach Knight probably would have struggled. But unapologetic, and just a very, as I said, polarizing figure in a lot of ways. But a lot of people learn the game from this man. And I think today, as much as we can be critical of him and much as we can talk about the other side, I think we should have the 90-10 rule and speak about the great things that he brought to the game.
Chris, can't tell you how much we appreciate this. Before we let you go, do you have Final Four picks for us? I mean,
you put me on the spot.
Listen, the college basketball season is about to tip off. I don't know if we would have had a more random collection of teams on the men's side for the Final Four last year. When you think about UConn, the University of Miami, and FAU, and San Diego State, I mean, that's going to be an all-timer. If you could have called that Final Four, it really would have been something.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? You caught me on. I should have anticipated this question.
No,
and I've been boning up on my basketball.
Chris, we'll get you back. You don't have to answer this.
We'll get you back on the show. We're gonna break down every conference.
Yeah, we'll get you back, and you can do.
Let's tease them a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, Villanova fan you're talking to right here grew up in Lower Merion, so.
Oh, there you go. Good.
So we remember the Big Five, Chris. It's all good.
Oh, listen, hey, I'll tell you something. Before I went to Villanova from Houston, I had no idea what the Big Five was. I certainly know what it is now.
Chris Walker, you can watch him, CBS Sports Network, college basketball analyst. Thank you for joining us to reminisce about Bobby Knight. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a good day.
Appreciate that. We turn our attention to Andrew Bogusch, who is here with headlines. Good morning.
Guys, good morning again. This is something the Washington Senators could only dream about. The Texas Rangers are finally world champs.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Spores kicks and fires. He struck him out looking. It's over. It's over. The Rangers have won the World Series. Ranger fans, you're not dreaming. The Rangers are the World Series champions.
As heard on Rangers Radio, a 5-0 win in Game 5 in Arizona. Texas winning all 11 of its road games this postseason. Last night, they didn't have a hit or a run for 6 innings. Got a Mitch Garver RBI single in the 7th, and then a 4-run 9th. That included a 2-run homer from Marcus Semien. Manager Bruce Bochy's been here before. This is 4th title. A smart decision by him to unretire.
It's unreal. I was sitting on a recliner there in Nashville and just enjoying myself when he called me. And I tell you what, I'm so honored to ride with these guys. They inspire me with how resilient they've been. But to get this call, be part of this, I know how blessed I am. I can't thank these guys enough.
And as we learned
yesterday, I love it.
Yeah, right?
We got to have the new not off the couch. Signed him off the recliner. Got him off the recliner. The only thing that would be better if he was sipping an ice cold lemonade.
I'm telling you, in that recliner, making leather goods. Now he can make little pouches for their World Series rings.
There you go.
Wait, when you think recliner, and he said that, were you thinking like a rocking chair on a porch, or did you go to Lazy Boy? Like
Lazy Boy.
What in your head? Okay.
Yeah, he knows the difference. He probably has both. But recliner is you sit back, flip the lever, legs go up with authority. That's what he's talking about.
Are recliners still as popular as they were when I was a kid? Like everyone had a Lazy Boy.
I don't know if if like Lazy Boy is still like the main thing, but
I mean, my parents bought their house. It was the must item my dad had to have more than anything else.
Yes, that was like it was like a not a status symbol, but like because it was more about like I've achieved this moment in my life where I can just kick my feet up. Yeah, I've earned it.
Yeah, my dad went ballistic one day because my friends were laying in his reclining chair, and he went ballistic. I could not believe how mad he was.
He went Bobby Knight on him. Did he also have? You have to if you're gonna have a recliner like that though, you must have a side table.
Oh, you got
of course.
Yep.
But I don't think that's a thing anymore. Actually, now you bring I've never heard anyone talk about a recliner now.
I'm trying to think. I haven't been ever since COVID. It's like you don't really go in people's houses as much.
I think it's more acceptable to eat meals and do everything on your couch, maybe. Well, that's what people brag about, getting super expensive, nice couches, right?
The last time I was in a furniture store, a lot of the couches had one section that was a recliner. It wasn't a freestanding Lazy Boy. There's also, too, the fancy folks that have, like, screening rooms, have, like, the reclining, like, movie chairs.
Movie theaters, the newest movie theaters have recliners instead of chairs. I think it's Regal or AMC.
Almost all of them do now.
Yeah.
And I love
sick.
it. I love it. And you get, assigned seating, which I love as well.
That too.
Like, everybody knows where you are before you get in there, and you know what kind of seats you'll be able to get by looking up and seeing, only bad seats available in this theater. Let me go to somewhere else. Like,
or you can sit next to the people you want to sit next to and make sure you can sit next to them.
Yeah.
If you don't have a recliner and table service at a movie theater, how are you even in business?
Well, I got to tell you, though, there's one theater that has the old school sticky floors, like they haven't cleaned it up, and there's these old chairs.
Porn?
And no, but there's something charming about it. It's like the one, it's not the big corporate movie theater. I do think
Indie film, art house.
Are movies really bad? Did we suffer as kids going to a normal, crappy movie theater? Like, do we need this experience?
I'm
not sure we do.
It didn't feel like I was suffering. I felt like I was having the time of my life. I had multiple birthday parties just going to a movie.
Yeah, you give me popcorn anywhere. I don't need the recliner. I like messing up an old crappy theater kind of.
Except front row is always bad. Bogus, sorry.
Steelers Titans, Pickett Levis on Thursday Night Football in Pittsburgh. Will Levis doesn't have to worry about injured safety Minka Fitzpatrick, but Cam Hayward is back on the Pittsburgh D-line for this one after hurting his groin in Week 1. And if rookie Jaron Hall starting for the Vikings wasn't good enough for you, the Falcons are going with Taylor Heineke for Sunday's showdown. This a 1-week change from Desmond Ridder, for now at least, according to Arthur Smith.
Are you kidding me? Taylor Heineke is Joe Namath compared to Jaron Hall. The Falcons have a huge edge here.
But do you want to watch either one of them play the position?
Not much.
Okay. The Miami Heat set themselves up for another Cinderella run through the playoffs, opening the season 1-4, courtesy of last night's 109-105 home loss to the Nets, a game in which Miami led by 15. Head coach Eric Spoelstra.
We certainly have to sustain. We have to find a way to sustain it more consistently and better, and that's what we'll focus on.
This is Miami's worst 5-game start since 2006. The Grizzlies 0-5 for the first time since 2002 after a 133-109 loss in Utah, and the Bucks just 2-2, falling in Toronto 130-111. Giannis and Lillard combining for just 31 points. The Lakers snapped their 11-game losing streak to the Clippers, 130-125 in overtime. LeBron 35 points, 12 boards, and 7 assists. The Warriors stole a 102-101 win from the Kings on Klay Thompson's jumper with 0.2 of a second left. And the Pelicans 110-106 winners in OKC, 29 points from CJ McCollum. Zion had 20 plus 10 boards and 8 assists. Arizona also lost on the ice last night. The Coyotes falling in OT in Anaheim 4-3. Troy Terry scored 3 times, including the game winner for the Ducks. And the WNBA putting expansion to Portland on hold for now, apparently because upcoming renovations to the Blazers Arena means the new team wouldn't have any place to play. The Warriors getting a WNBA franchise in 2025, and the league wanted to add Portland to that as well. Guys, back to you.
Hey, when's the James Harden train wreck begin?
Well, he's at least on the bench now, and PJ Tucker played last night.
James Harden in street clothes, right?
Yeah, so Harden's doing his physical ramp-up act for the Clippers.
I love PJ Tucker's got to be, 50 at this point, and he played last night?
Well, look, if you miss Perloff, if you miss Harden in Philly, you can get an up-close look at him Monday night.
Right? That's the projection, Monday at the Knicks for his debut.
Is that going to be? That's what I was asking.
It's possible. I mean, that's 5 days from now. So if you can't ramp up by then, I don't know.
Am I going to be able? Is that going to sell out? Is that a big game? Knicks Clippers.
I was thinking about going until I got this job. So
go till halftime with this job.
Yeah, leave at halftime. So I think the Garden sells out anyway, so I don't think it will matter. But
didn't Harden drop 50 at the Garden once?
He did. Okay. I think it was a 50-point triple-double too. Thanks, Maggie, for that reminder.
I want to. If I could short a stock in the NBA team, it is the Clippers.
Oh.
And
you can't short it because everyone's there shorting it with you.
Oh, okay. There's no value to be had there.
No one thinks this is going to work.
They'll win regular season games. Just the one ball for Westbrook, Harden, George, and Kawhi, I just do not understand. They probably won't be on the court at the same time, right? Like, those four guys are not going to be healthy at once.
I doubt it.
I mean, they don't think it's going to work. The way they're already talking about it, like, yeah, we'll all sacrifice. Like, they know it's not going to pan out.
Yeah,
this is amazing.
If James Harden, the report was that he was upset last year because he didn't make the All-Star game, what do you think it's going to be like if one of these guys doesn't make? Maybe Kawhi doesn't care, but I'm assuming Paul George would like to make the All-Star game again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of there's only so many shots. And obviously, you think you'd move Westbrook to the bench, but he played 45 minutes last night. He's been arguably their best player so far.
Bogusch, thank you.
My pleasure.
So much more to do, including the latest from the Michigan scandal. We've got that for you in just moments. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. New morning show here on CBS Sports Radio. A little traffic of what's going to be coming up next. Raider fans, top of the hour. Amy Trask is going to join us, former president of the Raiders. She's going to try to help us figure out what the heck is going on and how the heck do you fix it. Do that a little bit. And then final hour of the show also just confirmed Steve Alford is going to join us. He's probably one of the most famous players, maybe outside of Isaiah Thomas, to play for Bobby Knight.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of the iconic Indiana player, two names come to my mind, Steve Alford and Damon Bailey. The homegrown shooting, you think it's just tough shooting.
Not Isaiah?
No, I don't think of Isaiah because he's not from Indiana.
He's from Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, great. Obviously, there's been so many great players coming out of there. But Steve Alford is sort of tied to Bobby Knight. And Isaiah, the other two, I kind of missed Isaiah. So that's partly the feathered hair with Steve Alford in the 80s. Are you kidding me? We all worship that dude.
Well, he's going to join us later on in the show to talk about the passing of Bobby Knight. Meanwhile, another iconic coach is under a lot of scrutiny, and it seems to be happening daily. So we turned it into a daily segment.
I got a one-track mind. I'm not going to be speculating. Can let others speculate that.
It's time for Michigan Mystery.
The newest of the James Bond movies. It's called The Michigan Mystery, where we parse out who may have been wearing disguises on the sidelines of a Central Michigan game, trying to steal signs for Michigan State, who Michigan would later play.
You know what the problem with this scandal is?
What's that?
That the details are so amazing. They've been coming so fast and furious. It's like a fire. I need more details about Connor Stallions every day. I need a new little quirky story because I feel like this guy was capable of anything. I'll bet you there's 50 great stories that we don't even know yet, and I hope we find them all out.
Well, Jim McElwain is the head coach at Central Michigan. This is the latest mystery surrounding Michigan. Was Connor Stallions on the sidelines of Central Michigan wearing Central Michigan gear? Jim McElwain says the school's looking into it.
We've obviously are aware of a picture floating around with the sign stealer guy. Our people are doing everything they can to get to the bottom of it. We're totally unaware of it. I certainly don't condone it in any way, shape, or form.
McElwain, not the only one. Apparently there was a call last night amongst Big Ten football coaches, lasted 90 minutes. 30 minutes of it, Jim Harbaugh was on the call doing some, I guess, conference business, who knows. And then he hung up the phone and the rest of the coaches just went to town. According to ESPN, they were complaining to Commissioner Tony Petitti about this is now tainted, it's fraudulent, this is unprecedented what Harbaugh was doing. Those are just some of the adjectives that they were using. Also, they laid out how the sign-stealing scandal really does impact the game.
That's funny. Does Lincoln Riley get to get in on that phone call and complain next year's Big Ten teams? I get this. I just, until someone puts their name to it, it's not like someone on social media. If you're blindly answering something to a reporter or talking behind the scenes, someone's got to come out there and say publicly, you need to suspend this man. It's got to be a Big Ten coach. Otherwise, the Big Ten, I think, can just lay back and wait for this to pass over.
Well, I think that's what they're hoping the commissioner's going to do, right? Like, shouldn't that really be the bidding of the commissioner of the conference?
But you have to publicly pressure that commissioner, don't you? I think nothing happens here because I think they wait till after the season. They can just say we need to gather more facts because they actually technically do need to gather more facts.
Yeah, this is not totally done. We put out a poll. EJ has results for us. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we asked a simple question: should Jim Harbaugh be suspended by the Big Ten? 54.4% say yes, 45.6% say no.
I'll tell you what, it's a lot closer than it was with the coaches because I don't know what the coaches are asking for, but according to this report, they want the Big Ten to take action right away. One quote said, "What are you waiting for? We know what happened." Now, I don't know. I still want more details, Perloff. You're right. But I think they get the gist of it. You are sending somebody to advanced scout. You're breaking the rules, and it did have an impact on the game. Okay. Boom.
If they suspend Jim Harbaugh, does it matter really on the field? Because I think they can win games with Jim Harbaugh not there. I think the key thing to really hurt them, say you can't come to the Big Ten title game.
See, to me, that does feel like you're also punishing the players, right? To say the players can't go. No, I know. That's where these punishments get really tricky.
But the players have been benefiting from the sign stealing.
They have, but it's like I'm a believer in sort of the buck stops here, and especially for college football head coaches.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, they can beat Penn State in that terrible Nittany Lion offense without Jim Harbaugh on the sideline. The head coach on the sideline is there's only a few big decisions. All the work's done before. I don't think that's really as meaningful as suspending them for a game.
No, you're definitely right. I guess maybe it would be satisfying the pound of flesh that these football coaches clearly are out for.
Well, the other reason I say that is this crazy, he got suspended in the beginning of the season for East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green, and we all knew it was an absolute joke. It didn't make the slightest difference whatsoever.
I think it's different if you suspend a guy for Penn State, and suspending him for Ohio State would be really something.
Yeah, but it's not the same as suspending the quarterback or something. They can definitely win those games without Jim Harbaugh.
855-2124-CBS, 855-212-4227. Coming up, we do try to figure out what's really wrong with the Raiders. I mean, really, really wrong. Former President Amy Trask is going to join us next. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's the reigning Fortnite champion. She's a Call of Duty legend. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Now we're a show of many talents. Say welcome in. It's Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. We are the new morning show right here on CBS Sports Radio. And Perloff, when we took this job, I don't think we anticipated so much news breaking overnight that we would wake up to when we're the earliest people up, that we would have this news. But it's happened a couple times, and most recently this week with the Raiders deciding to fire Josh McDaniels and their general manager, Dave Ziegler, and the offensive coordinator. Clean house, basically, with the Raiders, and now they start with an interim head coach in Antonio Pierce, and nobody knows the Raiders as well as our next guest. She was the former CEO of the team. She's now a CBS Sports Network analyst. She's got an incredible podcast. It's called What the Football with Susie Schuster and Amy Trask. Amy Trask, good enough to get up early with us. Amy, thank you so much for the time. How are you?
I am well, and I want you two to know I will always get up at any hour of the day to join you two. And by the way, it's already 6 o'clock. In my book, half the day is gone. So, this is not too early for me.
I love it. This is the high-achieving people, bro. If they get up early.
Amy, every successful person I know now tells me they wake up at 5 o'clock. I never did that my whole life till now.
Well, I've always done that my whole life. I love mornings, and I cannot wait till this weekend when we go back to having light mornings. And I know that means it'll be dark at the end of the day, earlier than it is. But I love early mornings. I'm your early morning California girl. Just write that down.
Wait, is this weekend daylight saving?
It is, Perloff.
I thought that ended, daylight saving. I thought we were done with that.
No, I think this is the last one. I don't know. We'll get EJ to look that up while we talk about the Raiders with Amy. And, Amy, I think there's always, when you have an iconic franchise like the Raiders, and you worked for Al Davis, and you've written a book basically about how influential he was on you and your career, obviously. I mean, I know this might be impossible to answer, but if Al Davis was alive today, what would he think about the current state of his franchise?
Well, I will just note quickly and then get into that when you say that he had an influence on my career. You're, of course, absolutely right. The fact is, I wouldn't have the career I have but for him, because when I joined the Raiders, which was the mid-'80s, here's some breaking news for everyone. Hiring, and what I was at the time, a pretty young girl, was not the norm, and that's an understatement. So the fact that he was willing to hire a girl back then so many years ago is the reason I have the career that I do. What would he think about this? Two things aren't mutually exclusive. It may well have been the right thing to do to fire a coach in the middle of the season, and he would not have been shy about doing that if he believed it would be the right thing to do. But that doesn't mean there aren't some tremendous challenges there. If I did the math right, and there's always a big qualification that's a big if, because I don't always do the math right, I think the team has gone through 7 coaches in less than 13 years. And again, doing the math right, 7 into 13 is less than every 2 years on average for a coach. And, yes, people like to tease about the fact that Al went through a lot of coaches, and he did. I don't think he ever went through 7 in 13 years. So, they've got a lot to straighten out, but that does not mean it wasn't the right thing to do this.
Amy, when you look at the problems the Raiders are having this year, what part of it is personnel and the job the GMs have done over the past several years compared to coaching?
May I answer that, Your Honor? Yes and yes. Again, it's not mutually exclusive to say that there were some bad personnel decisions. And I would say more recently than going back a few years, I think Mike Mayock did a better job than some people believe he did because of some of the constraints he was operating under than the current group did, or I shouldn't say current anymore because they're gone. But I would say, it's not mutually exclusive to say it could be both coaching and personnel, and I believe it was. And, we can start with the quarterback issue. That, I didn't understand the Garoppolo signing at the time, but they did it, and the team is where it is.
Amy Trask is joining us. She's the former CEO of the Raiders, CBS Sports Network analyst, and also has a podcast called What the Football, which you should absolutely check out. I'm curious because, Amy, you're going to have more insight into, the thinking of Mark Davis than Perloff and I are. Who does he turn to in these kind of times? Because I'm seeing that maybe Tom Brady is in the building. I know it hasn't been totally finalized that he's a part owner, but clearly there's a relationship. Like, who's he going to turn to now? Where you mentioned about, the 7 coaches with interims, like he's looking for his 5th head coach now since 2011. Who does he take as counsel?
Well, I will note that Tom is a partial owner of the Aces, which Mark Davis owns. So, yes, you're absolutely right, notwithstanding that things haven't moved forward with a potential purchase of an interest in the Raiders. There's absolutely a relationship there. And there's another connection as well. And I think your question is terrific, Maggie, as your questions always are, because he does have a lot of advisors. Now, many of his in-house advisors have changed of late. The people who were in-house that advised him when he was selecting Josh McDaniels, they're gone. But he's got a lot of outside advisors as well. And there's a connectivity with the Tom Brady advisor role in the following sense. One of his primary advisors is Jim Gray. And, of course, Jim Gray has connectivity with Tom Brady. So that's a little, I keep using the expression Venn diagram. And for those listeners who are young, Google Venn diagram. We had to learn that when we learned math. And I don't really understand how that helped me with the math, and that may be why my math isn't great, but Google Venn diagram. in any event, he does have outside advisors. Jim Gray, with whom Jim Gray, who I just mentioned, has a connection with Tom Brady, is one of his very, very primary advisors. There are others, Ron Wolf, Ken Hirock, both of them have very strong football backgrounds. Mike Ornstein is an advisor, so he does have advisors outside the building.
Yeah, Jim Gray is responsible for more in sports than I think we can even understand.
Wow. Yeah.
The decision.
If you want to know who's responsible, Mike Ornstein's influence on football is huge as well. Amy, I have a solution for the Raiders. How about you add Caleb Williams to the mix? I know you're in L.A. They have 3 wins now, so it doesn't look like they're going to be really the top pick, but is the philosophy, hey, we're probably going to start over at quarterback next year?
They're going to play the rookie the rest of this season, it appears. And, look, let's put it this way. Football is week to week to week to week. They're going to play him this week. We don't know what will transpire after this week, but they're going to evaluate and see if they have someone there that's the right pick for them. If they don't, then yes, to use a Vegas analogy, wait for it, here it comes, all cards are on the table.
Amy, fantastic. And this is why you got to listen to What the Football with Susie Schuster and Amy Trask. Fantastic stuff. But is there a certain type of personality that you need to coach the Raiders? Antonio Pierce is now going to take over as the interim, and he came in with the nostalgia play. I grew up in Compton. I was there with NWA and kind of playing on some of the glory days of the Raiders, the 80s and 90s glory days. But we were talking about who could take over the Raiders. We're saying Jim Harbaugh and Deion Sanders and, these big personalities. Do you have to have a certain personality type to be the head coach of this team?
I don't think that's the case anymore. Now, by the way, I love the NWA reference. I was just, when NWA burst upon the scene, I immediately became I call myself the biggest NWA fan. Cube was once asked on television, who's the fan of NWA that sort of, you think it's the craziest thing that this person is such an NWA fan? And he named me. So I love the NWA connection, and I just love everything about that. But I don't think it necessarily takes a particular personality type. I will tell you, the Harbaugh idea intrigues me. The Deion idea intrigues me. All of those are very, very intriguing. You do need strong leadership, given the way the team is constituted now. But, look, let me quote Al. Just win, baby.
All right. Take us through Halloween Eve. If I'm a kid and I come up on Amy Trask's house, what do we got here? What's going on?
Okay, so I'm out on the deck because I live on the canals, and, people are walking by between the water and the front of our house. I have cat ears on. Now, when I was on the podcast, and you are very, very generous and gracious to mention it as you did, Maggie, thank you. I wore what I thought were cat ears on the podcast. Susie pointed out to me I was not wearing cat ears. They were devil ears. So I changed them. I said, okay, we'll go devil cat. But I changed them to cat ears when I got home. I drew on a little nose, like a little black, circle at the end of my nose. I drew on whiskers. I had a tail. I was wearing all black. So I was a cat, and I handed out candy. I think I love handing out the candy more than the kids who come over like getting the candy.
I am so not surprised by that fact. If I was a kid, I would go straight to your house, Amy.
And you know what? You are always welcome to come straight to my house when you're out here. We still need our Maggie and Perloff with Amy as a guest at the beach.
Absolutely.
I know our beach show.
Are you guys in production and business listening right now? We need Maggie and Perloff do a West Coast trip.
What about?
I'm sure you guys will be on Radio Row at the Super Bowl. Vegas is not that far a drive from Los Angeles, so you should get out here first.
But Amy, I assume you have a lot of influence in Vegas too. I don't know why I assume that, but I think I could throw your name around there too.
I don't think I have much influence. I don't think I have any influence in Vegas. LA on the beach, I'm your girl. I got you covered.
Amy, can't tell you how much we appreciate you getting up early with us, even though you're up already. You said half the day is over. Thank you for doing this again.
Thank you. And I will tell you, if you guys are ever hunting for someone on the West Coast at 5 a.m., I'm your girl.
We love it. And anytime anything happens with the Raiders, the first person we think of is Amy. Thank you, Amy.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate that. Amy Trask. Again, check out What the Football with Susie Schuster and Amy Trask.
Now I'm depressed.
Why?
Not because Amy's awesome. There's nothing depressing about her. She totally lifts my spirit. I didn't know daylight saving was coming back. I thought
know.
we were done with it. It's already November. I thought we passed that off. It's the worst thing in the history of America.
I do not like it.
Well, no, that's not true.
The worst things have happened, yes. But two things that I knew that you were not going to remember. One, daylight savings. And to be honest, I got surprised by it too. I was like, oh, no.
Isn't it
daylight
usually
savings.
earlier?
And then the other thing is remembering that the Chiefs are playing the Dolphins in Germany. It's
I remember. That I remember because
9:30 a.m.
every
Eastern.
player involved has been complaining about how awful it is to fly 11 hours to Germany. Okay, so they got rid of daylight. This is the last one? Can you promise me that?
EJ, were we able to ascertain whether this is the last daylight savings time or not, or do we need a little more time?
Yeah, there are a couple of things I was working on there. I don't believe this is the last daylight saving time, but I will double check that.
I think this got up to like the presidential level.
So do we fall back? I know fall back, spring forward. So what does that mean? The game starts at 9:30 Eastern in Germany. What time is that going to feel like? 8:30 or 10:30?
I feel like 10:30, which is good for you.
So we gain. It's good.
Yes, fall back is by far the best.
No, I don't like it because it gets so dark so early.
Let me rephrase that. It's best for sleep.
Yes.
It's not good for you want to be out and have fun in the afternoon, evening time.
It is also, daylight savings time is awful when you have children.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Young children, the worse it is. They have no idea what's going on, obviously. The kid has no sense of time, and it messes with their sleep schedule for
It's
at least
terrible.
a day or two.
It's terrible. They should just stick with it. I Googled daylight saving, and the only headline I got, did Coldplay singer Chris Martin's ancestor invent daylight saving? So there you go.
I mean, all I see here is from Reuters from 2022. U.S. Senate approves bill to make daylight saving time permanent.
Oh, right. So that it would be like we fall back, and then this is it. We
So
never spring ahead.
Spring ahead is much worse. You're right. That's depressing. But this is okay. So I get another hour to prep for Chiefs Dolphins.
Yes. What do you? Yes. To make food. What do you make? Nachos at 9:30 in the morning?
Well, no, it's obviously a German game. We're making brats.
Yeah.
We celebrate the international series as it should be done.
Yeah, soft pretzels. Okay, coming up. Tonight's game, you got Titans, you've got Steelers. What's at stake? We will tell you in just a moment. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. Yes, we are giving a public service reminder. Fall back, change your clocks this weekend. I am going to write a letter to my congressman. I hope they have time to focus on this. I'm over daylight saving forever and ever and ever.
Our pal Nick in Texas is in the chat. YouTube.com/CBS Sports Radio is where you can watch, or Twitch.tv/CBS Sports Radio. Said the U.S. Senate passed a version of the bill, but it never voted on by the House of Representatives, with little to no progress made on the 2023 measure. Thank you, our congressional correspondent, Nick in Texas.
Are getting a few tweets saying it's stuck in Congress. I mean, come on, Congress, that should be number one priority.
This is the one thing we should all be able to agree on.
I know.
We agree on nothing in this world.
There's two things we agree on. Everybody hates the NCAA, and everyone hates daylight saving.
That's true. That's all we got. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. So you got Thursday night game. That's pretty intriguing tonight. I think
it's going to be ugly, though, because the Steelers, every single game has been ugly. That's how they want to play football. They want to hang around, and then beat you at the end with a Kenny Pickett drive. The question is, are they going to need to here? Are they going to maul this poor kid, Will Levis?
Well, Levis is coming off the 4-touchdown performance, and it wasn't just touchdowns. It was bomb after bomb after bomb. Yeah. He had 3 touchdowns, over 50-plus yards, and some of the throws were like just jaw-dropping. This is going to be something different, and I don't know if he's going to fall totally back down to earth, but I am predicting that he's going to throw a pick in the first half. I think you're walking in, even if the Steelers are not, necessarily clicking on offense, because the offense has been totally stalled. There's no reason for this either. They actually have weapons, but this offense is totally uninspiring.
Yeah.
The fans have wanted the offensive coordinator fired for a year and a half.
That's the reason.
And I think the defense is just going to be something that Levis, this is a step up in weight class, big time, as opposed to playing the Falcons at home. This is going to be big to go into Pittsburgh to try to do the same thing to the Steelers.
Well,
few people make it out of that.
One
That'd be
thing
good.
Levis can do is he can run. I mean, he started out his college career as purely a runner, which is funny because now he's throwing bombs everywhere. But last year at Kentucky, he only threw 19 touchdowns the whole season. College football, that breaks pretty much last in the entire FBS. So he's not known as a pure thrower. He's going to have to run for his life here against TJ Watt. I think both teams, I mean, these teams are built out of the same cloth. They want to control the clock with the running game. That's why I kind of think this is going to be a borderline unwatchable game. And I don't even mean that as an insult.
Unwatchable. That escalated quickly.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Jags-Steelers game. Did you try to watch that last week? It was 20-10 Jags. The Steelers are just really trying to want to take the air out of the ball. And I think, with Levis playing, I think the Titans will too. I'm predicting 17-13. I'm not telling you who's going to win, but 17-13.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I like this from the chat. So we've been talking, we just got off the phone with Amy Trask, who joined us. If you missed any part of that, you can always download the Maggie and Perloff podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And Amy's a former CEO of the Raiders. We were talking about sort of what's next for Las Vegas now that they've fired Josh McDaniels. But Jeff Howell says this in the chat. Do fired coaches get to keep their team apparel? And if they do they ever wear it? I think it probably depends on how bad the ending was. Like, if you're unceremoniously fired or you have to resign in scandal, then maybe you stay away from the apparel. I bet Josh McDaniels will wear Raiders stuff. I mean, that was kind of clean.
Oh, I mean, Raiders stuff is great. Dan Patrick asks every coach, do you keep your old gear? That's his first question. And they all say, oh my gosh, I have a box of old Chiefs gear or something sitting around. They never know what to do with it. They've collected so much crap through the years.
It is one of the perks of the job. Lots of free clothes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, even if you got fired, a good pair of comfortable mesh shorts is a good pair of comfortable mesh shorts. You got to wear it. And I agree with you. Raiders stuff is always cool, even if you got fired by them.
So you think Josh McDaniels now spends the next 6 months like loafing around his house just wearing all Raider crap?
He's getting paid for 4 more years. Yeah, I think I don't think he hates the Raiders as much as we think he does.
I just imagine coaches get kind of, depressed after they get fired, right?
Yeah.
It's a major failure, even if you're getting paid. So you're just like, eating ice cream out of the tub, watching, bad daytime TV, just like in a Raiders sweatshirt.
Well, I don't know anything about the contract here in the offset. I feel like Josh McDaniels is already on a plane for Foxborough. Can he just rejoin them? I think he's going back there
and
again.
They already played each other, so it's not like he can share secrets like with the game plan or anything. Raiders already played the Patriots this year.
I think he'll be welcomed back into the family, and who knows how long the family's going to stay there with Bill Belichick. But Bill O'Brien's the offensive coordinator now. O'Brien used to be his quarterback coach. He'd flip around. I'm telling you, Josh McDaniels, Bill O'Brien, Nick Caserio, Dave Ziegler, Bill Belichick, they're all coming back for one last party next year, and they're going to have a new quarterback. And McDaniels can coach young quarterbacks. Maybe it happens.
So this was an interesting one. Our pal Zach Gelb was talking to Mike Florio, and we're talking about the future of the coaching situation in New England. So here was Florio on some rumors that are swirling about Bill Belichick.
There's a theory out there that when the season ends, Josh Harris, the new owner, of the Commanders, is going to call the Patriots and inquire about what it would take to get Bill Belichick. So the Patriots wouldn't fire him. The Patriots would essentially trade him to Washington and avoid any further financial obligation, get something back. Remember, they had to give up some stuff to get him when he was the Jets head coach for like a day in 2000. And so there's a thought out there that that's how this is going to go.
I like it.
Thought out where? Get out of here.
What?
Washington's going to trade for Bill Belichick.
I mean, a first-round pick? I bet that's what happened with the Jets and the Patriots.
Is it Josh Harris about the process and building the future? They're going to bring in 71-year-old Bill Belichick with a crap roster?
Dude, I think that this is a smart move by Josh Harris. It is. Listen, you've lost every which way in Washington. You're trying to put a stamp on this. You want to be associated with winners. Why is Magic Johnson part of this ownership group if not that you want to be associated with winners? Bring in Belichick, try to get things going in the right direction. You cannot bring in a Belichick disciple. That will fail. Yeah. You need the real thing.
I mean, Josh Harris and this tried to build the Sixers over a 10-year span. What's the lifespan of Bill Belichick in Washington? It's going to be like Vince Lombardi in Washington. I don't think, did he even get through a season there? He played one. This is classic coach at the end of their career, tries one more year on a new team and doesn't work. I think that would be a terrible idea because Washington's going to need 5 years. They have to look at the process of building a champion. Bill Belichick's going to come in and with a team that can win right now. Washington just got rid of their two best players, arguably, or two of their best players, Montez Sweat. Why would he take over that team? I don't get the fit timing-wise.
Okay, I think it brings some gravitas to this Washington organization that they have been lacking probably since Shanahan, Joe Gibbs, and even those guys didn't have awesome tenures when they were there. So you bring in that kind of gravitas, get your building going in the right direction, everything about it. And then if I'm the Patriots, hell yeah, give me a first-round pick for Bill Belichick. If they're looking to move on from him potentially anyway, the fact that I could get some draft compensation for it, I love it.
Belichick definitely, he would retire on the spot, I'm assuming. He's not going to Washington.
Why not? New ownership. You're not playing for Dan Snyder anymore.
You might be
working for Dan Snyder.
Belichick can look at the roster. He's not going to go 3-14. He's got a Hall of Fame legacy.
Who's got a better roster right now? The Commanders, the Patriots, the Commanders.
Yeah, but the Patriots are also 3-14. I'm saying,
saying it's an upgrade from what he has
go
right
there.
now.
He wants to name a player that's going to be on the Washington. They don't know who their quarterbacks. They have Terry McLaurin. That's about it. And they have Jonathan Allen. And
Deron Payne.
Yeah, this is a very thin roster, one of the thinnest in the league. So I think he wants to get that record, but he's not going to go to Washington. This will be a disaster. You can't go from New England to a team with less talent.
But I think there's one thing that could be attractive for him going to Washington. Maybe he wants to work with Eric Bieniemy. We talk about how offensively they've struggled in New England. They look stale. They look old. It's not something that it seems like Belichick knows how to get a handle of. He's bringing in Joe Judge and Matt Patricia and all these losers. Like, maybe he says, look, maybe the roster isn't great, but I saw what Bieniemy did with Andy Reid. That's like offense I feel comfortable handing the offense over to. I can really build up this defense.
Okay.
And maybe that's what he sees as something that could be attractive.
I got a better plan. How about Josh Harris? He's out with Eric Bieniemy, and he turns the team over to Eric Bieniemy. Why are you going to even bring in Belichick here? Obviously, I think Washington's offenses look great. Harp said torch the Eagles twice. I think Bieniemy's absolutely working there. The quarterback's getting hit a lot. But Sam Howell's numbers are as good as Patrick Mahomes this year. I think you probably don't fire Ron Rivera midseason just out of respect for everything he's done.
Yeah.
Just pass the torch, because I think Bieniemy's passed the test so far this year in Washington.
Yeah, but Bieniemy, for the success that he's had on offense, like Belichick's on a different level in terms of splash hire. Like Bieniemy might be a good idea. See, I don't know if Bieniemy though would he stick around? Like, does he?
Why not? Look, I know the Bill Belichick tree hasn't necessarily been successful as a head coach, but they keep getting jobs. Like, there hasn't been a freeze on Bill Belichick assistants getting head coaching jobs. These guys continue to keep getting
jobs,
cycled through. So perhaps he may feel like, look, Bill Belichick putting my name out there, putting out a good word for me, could give me an opportunity somewhere. And because he doesn't have so much of the Patriot way stench that a lot of these guys have, because he did it somewhere else and won a championship somewhere else, that may be the thing that gets him over the hump for the next head coaching job.
It's possible.
I just think the time, you're right, it'd be the big splash, and the big offseason splash move fails 98% of the time. So he'd be 72 by next year's draft, and a total rebuild here. This is a complete rebuild. I just don't see how the timing matches. I understand why Washington would want to do it, but I think it'd be short-sighted and not big picture.
If you're looking at, Doug Collins, I'm just trying to think of other people Josh Harris have hired, right? Josh Harris obviously, presided over the process, but hired big-time coaches, Doc Rivers. And again, like Doug Collins, it's not like they were all Brett Brown. He has wanted big-time coaches as part of his organizations. If Belichick's available, I get it.
Yeah, he kept Brett Brown for a long time.
Well, that's because Brett Brown was okay with losing.
The process, and I don't think, honestly, Bill Belichick needs to go to a team, if he's going to leave the Patriots, that is close. Because he might not even, I don't know how many wins he has. We should check that. But he might not get 5 wins with that team next year. Because aren't they just starting over? I assume because they were sellers at the trade deadline. Unless they have a lot of free agent cap space that I don't know about. And maybe they can, but I know the Patriots have millions and millions of dollars of cap space next year. They're going to get a top 10 pick, bringing a quarterback. Honestly, if I'm Bill Belichick, I'd rather stay in New England. I would not want to do Washington.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Do you like Belichick potentially getting traded to the Commanders? Nice little nugget again from our pal Zach Gelb, who was talking to Mike Florio. Andrew Bogish is here, and I'm just continuing to name names, just pointing at people. Bogish, Gelb, Florio, Perloff, EJ, Billy.
You had Amy Trask.
Billy.
Amy Trask was here.
Mentioned Jim Gray.
That was unexpected. Amy's the best. I'm so glad she mentioned that because I did not know that one of the major confidants of Mark Davis, the Vegas Raiders owner, was broadcaster Jim Gray. He might be the one influencing this next decision.
Well, I would think then he's the one that connected Brady to Davis because I know he's tied with Brady as well.
You'd be correct. Amy also said that's the Venn diagram there. That's how Brady got in with Mark Davis is because Jim Gray hosts a podcast with Brady and is good friends with Mark Davis.
And all I got is People-Ati.
Who can't even be here, by the way.
Well, goes without saying. So, with his team's season on the line, Zach Gallen no-hit the Rangers for 6 innings of Game 5 of the World Series last night, but the Diamondback offense could never take advantage.
Bases loaded, no score, 2 outs. Here's the pitch. Breaking ball, it's hit weakly to short. Seager coming in, and the throw to first is in time. And Eovaldi works his magic once again. He gets out of trouble, and the Diamondbacks do not score.
Nathan Eovaldi's 6 scoreless despite 4 hits and 5 walks. He left 9 D-backs on base. Gallen finally cracked in the 7th, allowing 1 run on 3 hits. He was great, but it was not enough.
Selfishly, you want to do well, but I mean, I would have rather given up 1,000 runs and we still won the game.
The Rangers put the game away with 4 runs, top 9. They won Game 5, 5-zip. They take the series 4-1. They went 11 for 11 on the road. This, the first title in team history. Corey Seager gets his 2nd World Series MVP, joining Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson, and Reggie Jackson as the only men in that club. In the Diamondback clubhouse, only sadness, even for new guys like Tommy Pham.
Emotions flying everywhere, so, my phone's blowing up. Everyone's saying their goodbyes, and it's really tough.
But we are forever grateful for sending the Phillies home. One non-playoff note, Craig Counsell expected in New York today to begin interviewing for the Mets opening. He has already met with the Guardians, has an offer from the Brewers to remain in Milwaukee. You can't separate the bad from the good with Bob Knight. We remember it all the day after Knight passed away at 83 after fighting dementia. He was the all-time men's D1 wins leader when he left Texas Tech. His 1976 title team at Indiana remains the last undefeated champ, and his resume includes the 1984 gold medal. NBA last night, the Celtics scored 75 first-half points on the Pacers. The game already out of hand when they tacked on 46 fourth-quarter points, finishing with a 155-104 victory. Indiana head coach Rick Carlisle.
Ugly game. They played great, but we allowed them to play as great as they played.
The 155 points, the most the Celtics have scored since the 58-59 campaign. The Lakers were still in Minneapolis then. The current Lakers fought off the Clippers 130-125 in overtime to end an 11-game losing streak in their head-to-head. The Warriors dropped the Kings 102-101 on a Klay Thompson hoop with 2:10 left. The T-Wolves gave the Nuggets their first loss, 110-89. The Rockets got their first win, 128-119 over the Hornets. And the Cavs snapped their 3-game skid, 95-89 at the Garden. Julius Randle scored just 6 points for the Knicks, missed 12 of 15 shots, and then freaked out EJ with this postgame.
We got to try to find a way to make the game a little bit easier for each other and help us get in the rhythm, get easier baskets. We're just working too hard.
Didn't they win in Cleveland the night before, EJ?
Also, who is we? Who is we? He's the one that's struggling. He's the one that's shooting 27% from the field.
You know, it's funny, when we all started this together, I failed to factor in that this is likely going to be a terrible year for Julius Randle and that EJ, we might slowly just lose him throughout the season. You just become untethered and just float away into your Knicks misery.
Every other year, Randle, good year, bad year, good year, bad year. Last year, good year. This year, 27% from the field through 5 games, just saying.
He's like a relief pitcher. Up and down, up and down.
Yep. He's a lefty reliever.
He'll probably play on as many teams, too, by the time.
The Buffalo Sabres were 5-2 winners in Philadelphia last night, and the Columbus Crew began their best-of-3 first-round series with Atlanta United with a 2-0 win. Both those goals from Cucho Hernandez. Back to you guys.
Bogish, thank you so much. We really appreciate that update, every single part of it. Let's get to our shot of the day.
He shoots! He scores!
And the This shot of the day is brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. People like me, here's what happened earlier.
One thing to steal signs, there's another to get airline points.
Chilling at the Delta Club in a
Oh,
Central
my
Michigan
gosh. Are you kidding
shirt and pair of sunglasses.
I actually never, ever, I've been in a Delta Club once or twice. What is going on? I assume that there's just very fancy nuts in all of these lounges. I think that's a distinction between the regular airport and the Delta Club.
Like nutty people?
No, I think you have like the
Like cashews.
Yeah, no, those fancy almonds. What are those called? The
Jordan almonds?
Jordan almonds. There's another macadamia nuts. You might
Big
have some
nut guy.
macadamia nuts. I mean, that's what makes a airport lounge the best.
The fact that I got to be honest, in a post-COVID world, to be sticking your hand in a communal bowl of anything, to me, that went out the window with COVID. Yes, that was us talking about the latest twist and turn in the Michigan scandal. I should have set that up a little bit better.
Marcona almonds. They're almonds and they're white because the skin's already off them. They're amazing. And I just know that certain lounges, I don't know if Delta has it. If you fly one of those internet Lufthansa, they got definitely Marcona almonds. If you get macadamia nuts and you don't have to pay top dollar, I mean, just sit there all day.
I'm
Diet
looking at the
Coke.
picture of these almonds. Like, why are they glazed with something?
You know
why
those
do they look
fancy
so shiny?
Marcona almonds? You ever seen it? They're amazing.
They're Spanish. I love that Perloff thinks that behind some sliding doors and like gate D is just waiting this almond heaven. Like that's all that this is. This was about Connor Stallions. We were joking that he's racking up all these points.
Definitely
because he's been traveling to spy on all these Big Ten teams for Michigan, presumably. And you just think of like this is the height of luxury is sliding doors open at the airport. Perloff walks in and just people handing you free snacks.
Are you kidding me?
1 year rate for Delta Sky Club, $695.
So they're sitting around in a room saying, all right, who's going to scout this Purdue game? And Connor's like, okay, if I connect in Columbus and go to West Lafayette through, that's this many sky. People think this is about, stealing signs. No, this is about getting airline miles.
I knew somebody, I'm not going to say who it is, but you might know him, who flew to Bangkok just because they needed to do a certain number of miles to reach a certain like platinum status.
Yeah.
Flew to Bangkok, Thailand, got off the plane, stayed in the airport, waited, flew back to Los Angeles. That's it. Didn't take a cab, a tuk-tuk, anything, go get some Thai food. Didn't go sightsee, not one temple.
Respect.
Flew to Bangkok, sat in the airport for a few hours, flew home.
Probably ate some macadamia nuts.
I'd
Living the
freaking hope
life.
so. I'd freaking hope so. To get to platinum status on some kind of airline.
I get it. Man has priorities.
Oh, my gosh.
So
sad.
But one thing to pick on you here for post-COVID, even before COVID, you thought those nuts were okay to go? Because I'll admit, even at a bar, you have to be pretty drunk to go into the nuts at a bar, especially a dive bar.
The popcorn, people just putting like your whole mouth in your hands and then back into the bowl.
The beer probably kills all those germs, though. That's the thinking.
Drunk thinking.
I was going to say, yeah, some germs can't be killed that way. Especially
7
once
shots of Jim Beam will kill anything.
Especially stuff you might be picking up at a dive bar.
Yeah. No, that's called penicillin afterwards. That's the next day,
It's
Maggie.
generally from the clientele. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I kid, we love dive bars around here. Coming up, we are remembering an icon and a legend in Bobby Knight. Steve Alford, one of his most famous mentees and players, will join us next. Don't move.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To me as a coach, it doesn't mean anything, Brent, and I mean that from this standpoint. Sure, I'm tickled, but for these kids to come back like they did and to hang in the game the way they did, and for these last 2 years, my first thought is what these kids have done.
That was Bobby Knight after winning the 1987 Men's National Championship, the NCAA Championship, and one of Coach Knight's most famous players and someone who has carried on the positive things that Coach Knight has stood for as he passed away last night at the age of 83. Steve Alford, the head coach of the Nevada Wolfpack, is good enough to join us now to reminisce about his former college coach and much more than that. Coach, thank you so much for the time today, and we're sorry for your loss.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Can you tell us the first time you ever met Coach Knight? How old were you?
Yeah, I went to his camp as a third grader. I'm not sure if I met him before that. My dad was coaching at Martinsville High School, which was just 15 minutes up the road. So I might have met him, probably did meet him because Dad took me to practices and games in Indiana and those things. But third grade, I started going to camp, and I went to camp from third grade all the way through 12th grade. I still went to his camp even after committing to Indiana. So he was just somebody at a very early age. I grew up in that era where he had just come to Indiana, and within a year's time, he's going to the Final Four, and he just started changing everything in our state when it came to motion offense and man-to-man defense. And I was just a young boy at the time, and I just wanted to be around that.
So did you not even consider other schools? Was it Indiana your whole life you knew?
Oh, that's the only thing. Growing up, it's Indiana, so there's blizzards or snowstorms. I was the first one to get out on the driveway and get cleaned up and get the net unfrozen, and all those workouts were one to try to be good enough to play for my dad in high school, and the second goal and dream was to be good enough that Coach Knight, thought I could play, and that's the irony behind it all. I was all 6'1", $145, 50, so you appreciate the gamble that he took. But yeah, once, I'll never forget Dad pulling me from the lunchroom when Coach called that, offer a scholarship, and Dad looked at me and he said, "Hey, what do you want me to tell him?" And I said, I think you know that answer. And he goes, "Yeah, I told him."
Steve Alford, good enough to join us here as we reminisce about the life of Bobby Knight, who passed away last night. Steve Alford coaching the Nevada Wolfpack. And, the fact that you became a coach, Steve, is even a testament to your father, obviously, and then to Coach Knight. Why do you think that, Coach Knight didn't seem like the easiest person to get along with, and that might be an understatement. What about your personality meshed with him so well?
Well, I think the thing I learned a lot under Dad was the ability to compete, the ability to prepare myself, trying to improve every day, having a self-discipline. I think anybody that I changed my game from my freshman year where I averaged 1 point and shot 69% at the line. I really dove into Dad helped change my shot and change my workout regimen. And I think those things were all about Coach Knight, because I think Coach Knight was at a whole different level, obviously, than mine. But when I got to Indiana, I knew I was playing for a guy that nobody prepared a team any better. Nobody had more self-discipline and team discipline. Nobody, worked harder at improving his team and players daily. He taught me and others the value of competing on every possession, no matter what drill it was. And then ultimately, I thought Coach was the ultimate winner. And those were all traits that meant a great deal to me. And I knew that if I wanted to be successful, I didn't have the gifts of athleticism or size or strength. And those were traits I needed to have.
I saw some interviews last night where Coach Knight said that he would sometimes not pick on, but he would criticize the best players on the team to send a message to the rest of the team. Did you ever feel like he was kind of coming after you even when you were the star of the team? And did you know what he was trying to achieve by doing that?
Oh, there's no question. I was kicked out of practice, I think, 7 times in my Indiana career. And, I think some of them were definitely warranted. And then there were, I think, things where, I had getting a lot of attention and those type of things. And it was not only to send a message to me, but it was to send a message to my teammates that, hey, this might be the guy getting all the attention. This might be the guy that's doing this or that. But he's no different than anybody. And I think I learned so much under Coach about the value of team, what a teammate was about, honestly going about things and how you compete. And with Coach, you could never take things personal. You had to understand what he was saying. And when you understand what he was saying, I think that's when you grew. And I had my greatest growth during that time. And he really helped me, I think, move from one game to the next. And I think I had a fairly consistent career. And a lot of that, the majority of that had to do with how Coach coached me.
Coach, we only have about a minute left. Sorry, but we hear this about the hard coaches, Belichick, Parcells. When you get them behind closed doors, they're different people. There's a lighter side to them. Can you tell us maybe a story or quick story or an anecdote about the lighter side of Bobby Knight?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that when I was coaching at different spots that I've been able to coach at, and coaches always allow me to come into film rooms. And when I was at New Mexico, I went to Texas Tech 2 or 3 times a year just to sit in film rooms. And I can remember as a player, that was the last thing you wanted to do was be in a dark film room with Coach. You knew that it wasn't going to be pretty, so it was good to be on the other side and be in the coaching profession. But I can remember one particular day in Lubbock, he just looked at me, he goes, we can talk basketball and we can watch this film right here, or we can go shoot some birds and talk basketball then. And he loved to hunt. I'll never forget, because I'm not a guy that had any usage of any kind of gun at all or any kind of hunting mentality. And I'm sitting on a 10-gallon bucket inside a fence talking basketball with Coach, and all of a sudden he just popped up and started shooting birds. It's a different experience, but just an incredible man and highly successful, but even more influential.
Coach, we can't tell you how much we appreciate this. Again, we are so sorry for your loss and keeping you in our thoughts today. And thank you again for the time.
Thank you so much.
Coach Steve Alford from the Nevada Wolfpack, of course, was one of the legendary players for Coach Bobby Knight. Yeah, that's a great question at the end. You're right. You always hear different things about these coaches behind the scenes. The hunting stories are legendary with Bob Knight. You know what? I think of some of the lighter side, the jackets from the 70s. That's what stood out to me. Did you see the highlights last night? Those plaid coats.
Oh, nothing puts you at a time and place like a coach wearing a plaid sport jacket, and he just rocked it like nobody.
Man, so that was Bobby Knight, passed away at 83. Obviously, a very complicated legacy and complicated person, but for a coach like Steve Alford, someone who had a profound impact on him, along with his father, who was also a basketball coach.
Steve Alford, man, he could shoot.
I feel remember like you probably love him.
Steve Alford with the feathered hair. You leave him over from 3 at your own peril, Maggie.
Thank you to EJ Stewart. Fantastic job today. Thank you to Billy Giacalone and also to Pete Pilati, a little double duty, to Andrew Kaplan, Andrew Bogish, to the Weedos and the Coffee Drinkers and the Callers. Amy Trask joined us. Chris Walker joined us. And, of course, Coach Steve Alford.
17-13 tonight, Maggie. You heard it first.
Who wins?
I can't tell you that.
Maggie and Perloff. See you tomorrow.
You're in a 5-minute break.